The story starts with a girl giving an interview, saying that she is quite an experienced player, but he drags everyone in solo. Another guy said that he always fought fiercely and killed all the bosses without difficulty, but he makes it look so easy. They all gave interviews with censorship on their faces for anonymity, while the third one said that he screwed up because of him, because he stole 3 kills. Meanwhile, a girl who was watching him play live decided to ask if he was a cyber athlete. Everyone wondered who he was, but all they could do was watch as notifications poured in that this player had committed murder. People confirmed that his techniques were stronger than all of theirs combined, making him a virtually unkillable player. People who were on his team personally saw how he single-handedly dealt with dozens of mobs without receiving any damage. They were sure that this was not just a player, but a real genius who simply had no equal in this game. Many people online have been asking whether Sunny is a great god or a mediocrity, a hidden talent or an absolute worthless nobody. Who the hell is he? He alone is capable of clearing out an entire location, getting a reward for himself alone, but his leveling up does not end there. The most popular game now is Glory. In this game, you log into your account using a special card. This has become commonplace in the gaming world, and esports tournaments have become more exciting and interesting. There was also an account that was nicknamed the God of War. Its owner is called Sunny, who is known as the best player in Glory. There were practically no players like him, and those who were still couldn't reach his level, no matter how hard they tried. On a snowy winter evening, a meeting was held at Team Era's base of operations that became the starting point for Sunny. When he walked in the door, the first thing he was told was to hand in his God of War player card, to which the guy responded with indifference. They decided to hand over the role of team leader to the new recruit Sebastian, who will become the owner of the God of War today. The manager added that he had been named Rookie of the Year by the Professional Alliance, and Sebastian himself briefly apologized. He also added that he took his place as soon as he arrived here, but there was not a drop of regret on his face, only a grin. Suddenly, a fair-haired girl ran into the room, loudly and displeasedly asking how they could act so rudely. Everyone looked at the guest in surprise, who said that Sunny had been leveling up the God of War account on his own. Marie angrily insisted that all 10 years of his hard work were there, so they couldn't just take and replace him. He clarified to the manager that the account belongs to the team, and not to him personally. During the 2 years when he was the leader, Era was at the bottom of the rating. The God of War account should be played by Sebastian. Only then will his full potential be revealed. All team members agreed with him. The girl was furious. I don't understand how they dare to say such things, but Sunny put his hand on her shoulder to stop her. She looked at the guy, who silently shook his head at her, hinting that she should not continue this conflict. The manager's patience was also running out, so he raised his voice, asking to give the card to Sebastian. The silent guy stepped forward, slightly lowering his head, after which there was a short pause that lasted for quite a long time. Sunny put his hand inside his shirt as he walked towards Sebastian, while Marie watched his actions with concern. After seeing the map, the newbie thought that he had joined this half-dead team for the sake of this account, in order to become the best in the world. Sunny extended his hand, handing the newcomer the treasured card. Looking at it, the blonde broke into a smile, not believing his luck. He was one step away from becoming the strongest. All that was left was to take the card and start the game. Suddenly, Sebastian froze with a surprised face, asking Sunny what he was doing, because he didn't want to let go of the card. The blonde said that Sunny's hand was shaking. Could it really reveal the true potential of the God of War? And so he asked to give it to him. To make things more convincing, he promised that every Glory player would know the God of War. But it didn't work. He was then asked outright to leave, but Sunny spoke up for the first time, asking Sebastian if he liked the game. He didn't understand what the question was about, so he just looked at the former member of Era's team with displeasure. Still holding the card, Sunny said that if so, then he should prove that he was ready to do anything for her and not just brag. After these words, he let go of the card, asking to take care of it, while the blonde looked after him in surprise. The former owner of the account headed for the exit, not wanting to continue an obviously useless conversation that would lead to nothing. At that very second, Sebastian jumped up from his chair, irritably asking Sunny to repeat what he had just said. The manager said that their team doesn't have any cards for him, so he can just be their coach. Sebastian confirmed that with his skills, only he was worthy of being their coach, but it sounded like a joke. Looking at the upset Marie, Sunny decided that he would refuse this offer, because being a coach was clearly not for him. He then approached the manager with a request to cancel the contract, to which he responded with an ambiguous grin. Marie loudly asked the guy not to rush because he would have to pay a huge fine because of this, but he didn't care. The manager smiled and sarcastically stated that he simply didn't have enough money to pay for it. But Sunny wasn't moved by this either. The man added that Sunny had always been a celebrity, but he had always refused to take part in advertisements and even interviews. He has great potential to make money, but he hasn't brought the team a penny. Although, given his potential, that's ridiculous. Add to this the fact that he has to provide financial support to his senior comrades. It is strange that he does not want to receive money. Looking at the guy, Sebastian said that a famous player like Sunny had no money, and he didn't even know about it. Turning around, Sunny calmly asked to be told directly under what conditions he would not have to pay the fine. Taking the notebook in his hands, the manager replied that he did not want to complicate things, so he only offered to announce his departure. Then they would take care of the fine without any problem. Hearing this, Marie again became angry at the manager's terrible attitude. She said he was well aware of the rules, which state that a player who has announced his retirement can only leave after a year. Besides, he is 25 years old. If he stops training and playing, he will no longer be able to join the team. Taking the notebook from the manager's hands, Sunny said that he had been working constantly all these years, and there was nothing wrong with taking a year off. While signing the application, the guy thought that the contract for his departure had been prepared a long time ago, which meant that they had prepared in advance. While the manager was carefully studying the application, Sunny headed for the exit again, while Marie asked him to stop. The rest of the team ignored their departure, surrounding Sebastian and congratulating him on his new position as leader. When they left the building, Sunny said that it was very cold today, so he asked the girl not to see him off. Marie stopped, asking what he was going to do now because she was haunted by the fact that he had been kicked out so easily. The guy waved his hand and replied that he would rest for a year and then return, but his voice did not express true emotions, after which he silently walked forward while Marie remained standing in place, her eyes wet with tears. Walking down the street, the guy thought that one day everything would change, although he didn't like sudden changes, and on top of that, it was really cold today. Stopping near one establishment, Sunny, covered in snow, thought that first he needed to find a place where he could hide from the cold. Without thinking much, he entered the Happy Internet Cafe where he was going to relax and have a good time. Go to the manager. He asked if he could stay here for a while. The girl asked for his ID card for registration. Having looked around the computer room, the guy noticed that this place was quite large. The manager pointed out that there were 47 of them instead of 47. After thanking her, he headed to the hall, not hearing how the girl asked him to take the ID card while she was watching a drama. Walking a little further, Sunny found the area where his place should be, but he decided not to rush. At that very second, he noticed that his place was already taken by some girl who was frantically clicking on the keyboard and mouse. He noticed that she was playing Glory, but this did not bother him at all. On the contrary, he watched her actions carefully. She screamed that she would shoot him even if she used up all her bullets. This incredibly loud girl's name was Shani. At the moment, she was fighting against some man, saying that he would not hide, after which he asked to taste his bullets. Sunny noticed that she was playing as a machine gunner, remembering that Marie also played as him all the time, but not so emotionally. It occurred to him to talk to Marie, who had always been on his side and always strived for justice. She always started playing with a smile, listening to the other players screaming loudly, and after winning, she only apologized. And looking at how Shani was screaming now, the guy came to the conclusion that they were both pretty scary when they played. Now the girl looked like a devil who had begun to punish all his victims without wanting to lower the volume. She attracted the most attention from the players sitting next to her, who watched in surprise as she lowered her head onto the keyboard. Claiming that she had lost again, the girl turned her head, noticing Sunny, asking if he needed the computer. Taking off her headphones, she sadly suggested that he sit down, thinking about how she had lost 52 matches in a row. This is despite the fact that she has been playing Glory for 5 years. The opponent should not be stronger than her. He should at least be a master rank. While she was seriously thinking about her total defeat, someone told her that this guy was using her account. Shani turned her head in shock, hoping that they were just trying to play a joke on her, but when she saw everything with her own eyes, she became scared. Having run to Sunny, Nam remembered that she forgot to exit the game, and therefore was worried about her money and equipment. She held out her hand and rudely asked the guy to stop, asking who gave him permission to touch it, but he didn't pay any attention. Shani pushed her chair back and glanced at the screen, betting that he had already lost the game, while Sunny just looked at her silently. Her eyes widened in surprise when she noticed the victory written on the screen, which she had failed to achieve in 52 attempts. The girl asked if he had won, but the guy remained silent, giving the girl time to rejoice. Even Shani, considered a veteran with 5 years of playing, had already lost 52 times, and he just went and won as if nothing had happened. Sunny looked at the girl, waiting for her to finish rejoicing so he could continue playing calmly and take his mind off his problems. He explained that she forgot to exit the game when he sat down. The match had already started. In response, the girl asked how long the match lasted. The guy answered in a calm tone that it would be a little less than 40 seconds, and this information made Shawnee freeze in a stupor. Sunny started blowing on his palms, saying his hands were cold. Otherwise, he would have been able to finish in 30 seconds, but he was out of luck. Shawnee looked at the guy in delight. Thinking about how strong he was, she decided that he was a pro, remembering the team closest to them. The only one around them was Magnificent Era, but she knew everyone from there, only if she was a pro who never showed his face. Covering her lips with her palms, Shawnee looked at the guy in shock again, realizing that the same Sunny was sitting next to her. Meanwhile, the guy just carelessly adjusted his headphones, pretending that he hadn't done anything special. The girl couldn't get enough of her luck because right now a professional player was sitting next to her. She wanted to question him at all costs and had already stretched out her hand to touch him, but at the very last moment she stopped. She thought that someone as unsociable as Sunny might not like this, so she decided to refrain. In order not to distract the guy, Shawnee carefully slipped past him to find out all the information from the administrator. I quickly ran up to the girl behind the counter. She loudly asked me to do something for her, because it was very important. Without giving the girl a chance to agree, Shawnee asked under what name the person sitting in Zone C in the 47th place was registered. The administrator immediately told her the name, which made the girl very happy, because she was right and she was very lucky. She took a notepad and a pen to ask him for an autograph. The administrator added that he even forgot his ID. Turning around, Shawnee remembered that people use their real names to register here, so she asked to see the map. Looking at his ID, she noticed that his name was Channy, after which she realized that they were just similar names. Shawnee almost burst into tears, dropping her pen and notebook on the floor, because she had hoped that she had met a famous person. Returning to the guy, she handed him the ID, saying that he forgot it at the reception desk. He thanked her and asked if she worked here. With a heavy sigh, the girl replied that she was the owner of this place, and therefore sometimes allowed herself to relax. Sunny replied that he had seen the job posting and asked if he would be considered for the job since he was qualified enough to do so. Plus, he liked the conditions, Shawnee agreed, thinking that she still wanted to get to know him better. And this was a good reason. She smiled and said that if he wanted to work for her, he had to do something, namely, win a duel with her in glory. He read the ad again, asking if that was written there, but the girl smirked and replied that she had just made it up. Sunny thought that he played too well in the last match, so she wants to know his abilities, then replied that he can't beat her. Shawnee asked why, to which he replied that he didn't have an account to fight her from, nor did he have the level or equipment. Looking questioningly at the guy, the girl said that she would never believe such a thing, but Sunny added that he had an account, but he gave it away. She noted that if the operation was solely based on his skill, then his account was worth a lot of money. He was generous enough to give his account to someone. The guy agreed, after which he heard the question whether he was going to start on a new server today. This interested him. Shawnee, today at midnight, Glory will be 10 years old, and at this time, a new 10th server is launched. Because of this, there are so many people here. The owner of the computer club smiled sweetly and added that it had already become a tradition to launch a new server every birthday. Shawnee joyfully spread her arms and said loudly that the 10th server, which many had been waiting for so long, would be launched at midnight tonight. Sunny paused, saying that, as far as he remembered, you could pre-register for the new server to be ready to play in advance. Shawnee agreed with surprise, adding that he would need an empty account for this. She became curious about what he was going to do. Opening his wallet, Sunny began to look for something in it, while the girl carefully watched his manipulations. Having found the card, the guy decided to try it out, and then inserted it into a special device which immediately began to read the information. Seeing the card, Shawnee asked if he hadn't said he had given away his account, and then began to look closely at the monitor. Slamming her hands on the table, the girl said in shock that this couldn't be, because such cards were dealt 10 years ago. Sunny confirmed that this card is from the first editions. She asked if he had been playing for 10 years. The bear, even she started playing only 5 years ago. She thought about the fact that he is a veteran who has been playing for 10 years. Now it is clear where he got such skills from. He gave up his previous accounts and was going to start from scratch on a new server, which made her even more curious about who he was. When the guy announced that he was done, Shawnee read his nickname, Lord Grim, saying that he could now safely play on the new server. Taking the card in his hands, Sunny leaned back in his chair, remembering the two people he had started playing Glory with. Putting her hand on his shoulder, Shani asked if he wanted to get a job as a system administrator. The guy replied that preferably on night shifts. The owner stretched and asked him to follow her, thinking that she had stumbled upon a real gem. It was all too lucky, because he wants to work the night shift. And he also has 10 years of experience in the game, and his aura is just like that of a real pro. After some time, she brought him to the apartment and said that only a couple of people lived on this floor, and now he would live here too. After looking around the apartment and putting down the box with keyboards, the guy thought that not only did she provide food and blood, but the furnishings here were also quite good. So quickly made the decision to leave the excellent era, even without having any clear plan for the future. And now, by the will of fate, he began to live here. At this time, Shani decided to show him his new room. Looking inside, Sunny noticed that it had not been renovated. Shani said that it might be uncomfortable, but it would only be for the time being. The girl admitted that she had no need for additional workers and the ad he had looked at was very old. The guy immediately understood what was going on, but it wasn't a problem for him. Everything suited him. Looking at her watch, Shani announced that they needed to hurry. Sunny didn't immediately understand what was being talked about, while the joyful owner grabbed his hand and pulled him along, saying that it would start soon. She turned around and smiled, explaining that there were only 7 minutes left until the 10th server opened, so they needed to be there. The guy asked her if she wanted to start playing on the 10th server, since her account from the 5th was already quite good. But she didn't pay attention to him. Instead, she showed how many people there were, thinking that it was all to test his skills. At this time, there were indeed a lot of people in the hall who were eagerly discussing the opening of the new server. Shani dragged the guy into the hall, repeating over and over that it was almost time and they couldn't waste a minute, otherwise they might be late. She sat him down at a free computer, telling him that they didn't have much time and therefore needed to get into the game as soon as possible. They managed to enter while everyone was loudly chanting the 5-second countdown, and the clock was almost showing midnight, egging the players on. Sunny and Shani stared at the monitor, which also showed a countdown until they could log into the server. As soon as the counter reached 0, the girl let out a loud exclamation and then looked at the guy reading the beginner's guides in shock. She stated that he had 10 years of experience in the game, so why the hell was he reading a beginner's guide? But he replied that he hadn't read one for many years. Shani asked him that he never helped a newbie level up. Noting that he was wasting his skills, Sunny replied that he didn't do that. She asked him what he was doing then, asking him not to say that he was working, but the guy said that his job was to play the game. Then the girl happily asked if he was a pro after all, so it was no surprise that he won in just 40 seconds. She then leaned back in her chair, asking if he had retired, and he asked her how she knew about it. The girl replied that it was understandable since he was no longer at that age, and besides, he seemed to be an ordinary amateur. She knows all the professionals around but has never heard of Channy, which begs the question of who he is if not an amateur. She asked him not to yell at him, asking if he had been kicked out and what the reason was, deciding that he had not been able to secure a place in the team. These questions took Sunny back to yesterday, when the manager announced that Sebastian would replace him as captain. From now on, the God of War account will be his, and he must resign. Then the girl realized that she said that you were offensive. She immediately began to apologize, asking the guy to forget everything she said, but he only calmly replied that everything was fine. Shani decided to console him, said that 25 is not a death sentence, he needs to train a little, and he will be able to return to battle. The corners of the guy's lips lifted slightly, after which he replied that he thought so too, and therefore he had no time to be upset. The owner slammed her fist into his palm and said hesitantly that when that day was over, she would have one request for him. She asked to help her get an autograph from one person. When asked from whom, the girl answered that from Marie. And Sunny, although it may be difficult, he is quite unsociable. Meanwhile, Sunny himself was in shock that she did not believe that it was him. Shani said loudly that no one knows who Sunny really is. He never showed his face. The guy did not answer that he knew it. Then he asked her if she wanted to know a secret. She immediately pricked up her ears. The guy quietly declared that he was that very Sunny. Leaning over, the girl replied that she also wanted to confess to him. In fact, she was Marie. After which she laughed, asking who he was trying to deceive. The boy repeated that he was indeed Sunny, to which the owner replied that she was indeed Marie, after which there was an awkward pause. She then sat down at her computer, asking him to continue reading his guide, adding that if he had any questions, he should ask. The guy started commenting on the guide out loud, to which Shani asked him to read it to the end. It already says which missions are worth completing and which are not. Sunny grabbed his head, asking himself if he really had to follow this guide, thinking about how far he had come. And after he finished reading, Sunny created his character and then began to immerse himself in the game world. When the loading was complete, he found himself surrounded by an incredible number of first-level people, and it was hard to see anything because of the nicknames. As in any other RPG, the character appeared in the starting village of newbies, where each player is just starting his journey. Suddenly, Sunny heard behind him the tramp of dozens of pairs of feet and shouts that the quest and the item were right there, and whoever got there in time would get the slippers. Shawnee, who was watching this, said with a smile that it was always like this on new servers. Everyone wanted to leave the starting location as soon as possible, around the only quest character, while the girl said that this game was truly worthy of its name. She asked to hurry up and hand in the quest, but there was a long line to the granny who needed firewood. The other characters were also quite difficult to reach, and yet some of the quests were quite simple. Many people wrote in the chat that anyone who breaks the queue and wants to squeeze into it will get a punch in the face from their guild. After some time, Sunny noticed the character's stats and said that he had finally reached level 7. Taking a closer look, he noticed that he already had 340 skill points, so he was ready to get the basic skills. Approaching the master, he said that he had found the right person, after which Sunny began to study various abilities. His character immediately began to sparkle, indicating that the new abilities had been successfully learned, after which they needed to be tested as soon as possible. First of all, he activated acceleration and then used somersault to get to the other master of basic skills faster. This master decided to show him how battle mages fight, advising him to study the Dragon Fang, an excellent stunning ability. Without thinking, the boy learned this skill, after which he went to other masters to study attacking and defensive abilities. His arsenal was replenished with a wide variety of skills, including healing, which could save him at any moment. Shawnee asked in shock why he had so many abilities and why he was learning skills from different classes. After all, after level 20 you'd have to change your class, but she couldn't believe that he was going to play without a class at all. He should know that classless players can only choose abilities up to level 20 and below. Even all the classes have already been introduced. Why did Sunny sell the bronze sword? And Shawnee asked why he sold his only starting weapon. And how was he going to fight now? Without answering, the boy went to the warehouse manager, who offered him to leave anything he wanted to keep. Opening the door to the warehouse, the guy headed towards the wooden chest, which should contain what he needed now. When the box was opened, a blinding light poured out from inside, which at first did not allow one to see the contents of the chest. Sunny took out the 1,000 Possibilities umbrella from there, while Shawnee asked if he really kept homemade weapons in the warehouse. She thought that silver weapons couldn't be obtained so easily, as it required a lot of materials to create such weapons. With each passing second, she became more and more curious about who this guy was as he equipped the umbrella. He was once told long ago that this was more than enough. The 1,000 Chance umbrella at level 5 was much stronger than the orange weapon at level 10. At that moment, the guy decided to try to improve this weapon as soon as possible. This was his original goal. After some time, Sunny reached the green forest where a team of 5 people was needed. A crowd of people had already gathered there, looking for a group. While walking around the area, the guy noticed a huge number of people, but he first decided to check the information. From here, he needs some rare materials for the 1,000 Chance umbrella, but he needs to pay in order to find the hidden boss. He enabled allowing others to invite him to a group, and dozens of notifications popped up in front of his face. The hero decided not to be particularly selective and chose the first invitation he came across, which was missing one person. When he joined the group, Sunny asked in the group chat how they would distribute the loot from the hidden boss. Another player noted that this guy likes to dream, after which he said that they will distribute all the dropped rewards by luck. When Sunny agreed, the group leader invited everyone into the dungeon, after which everyone began to enter the dungeon, waiting for the rest of the participants. The player under the nickname Sleeping Moon asked everyone to be very attentive and also follow him. Then everything will be fine. 3 of the band said that it was their first time playing, so they were lucky to have someone in the band with more experience, and so they were counting on him. After which, Sleeping Moon began to give a motivational speech, while the others only agreed and laughed. Suddenly, the leader of the group turned to Lord Grimm, asking in surprise why he was writing if he could speak. With a cigarette in his mouth, the guy turned his gaze to Shawnee, who had managed to fall asleep during this time, lying down right on the table next to him. Sunny wrote in the chat that he couldn't because someone was sleeping nearby. Such a response made the team freeze in a stupor of surprise. The blonde said that in any case it was just a small dungeon, and communication was not necessary to win. Sleeping Moon stated that for a veteran like him, this would not be a problem. If he wanted to type, let him type. The main thing was not to slow down. Suddenly, a strong wind arose. among which an approaching rustling sound could be heard. The whole team immediately tensed up. At that very moment, a system notification appeared that the boss of this dungeon, the Midnight Ghost Cat, was approaching. Sleeping Moon stated that this couldn't be true, because what were the chances that as soon as they started talking about a hidden boss, he would immediately appear? The girl healer asked fearfully how they would fight him, and the others also felt a bit uneasy. The leader of the group stated that there was nothing to be afraid of. He would be the tank, and they would not stand behind him and wait until he concentrated his attention on himself. But you have to be careful. This cat is very fast, the main thing is not to panic, and then everything will be fine with them. He began to explain that the MT is the main tank. It absorbs a huge amount of damage due to the fact that they have the most armor and health. The tank attacks first because of the provocation, all the enemy's attention will be focused on it, and therefore the rest must attack. As long as the other's taunt doesn't exceed the main tank's taunt, they can do whatever they want to deal damage. And if they make a mistake and the monster gets distracted by them, then it will be an OT, off tank. After a detailed explanation, everyone said that they understood everything. At that very second, the rustling began to increase and a quick movement was heard between the trees, which meant that the boss was here. Sunny, who had a cigarette in his mouth, mentally prepared a battle plan against the boss, deciding to take a look at the others first. No one had time to react to the attack of the animal, which decided to first attack the weakest members of the group. Fallen Sun lost half of his health in a second, as he did not notice the beast that attacked him from behind, and therefore he was on the verge of death. Sunny solved this problem in the blink of an eye by stretching out his hand in front of him and casting a healing spell aimed at his ally. His health immediately began to recover, and the boy thanked him, saying that he had already decided that he would die and would not be able to continue. Sleeping Moon shouted that if he continued to stand there like a statue, the horses would definitely move. He also added that the cat was behind. Turning around, the boy and girl noticed a huge ghostly cat approaching them, the tips of its ears glowing with a blue flame. Without any signal or warning, the animal rushed forward, not wanting to give its opponents an advantage in numbers. The sorceress immediately screamed in fear, while the Fallen Sun pointed 2 pistols at the cat, which he held with shaking hands. However, he was unable to shoot, but Sleeping Moon immediately jumped out to help him, holding his sword in front of him, taking the blow himself. The beast's sharp claws scraped the sword, creating sparks that hit the blonde's head, but he was not going to retreat. He asked his comrades why they were panicking, because with him today they would definitely get the first kill, after which he slashed his sword straight into the cat's chest. A notification sounded, signaling that the monster was distracted by the tank. Then he ordered the others to attack the beast. The newcomers immediately became inspired, declaring that with the moon at the head, they would definitely be able to do everything, after which they prepared for the attack. Everyone took their position, after which the monster was attacked from all sides. The cat received firearms and magical damage. Meanwhile, Sunny stood silently and healed the team, not rushing to enter the battle, deciding that it would be better to wait for a convenient moment. Watching the moon, the boy noticed that his mechanical skill was indeed quite good. He held his position well and chose his timing perfectly. Meanwhile, the leader clarified that Lord Grimm was not a newcomer, and therefore asked to help take care of these newcomers with him. He added that he was leaving the role of cleric to him, at which point Sunny wondered why he had just been made a simple support. After a few seconds, the ghost cat's health dropped to a minimum, after which he went into a rage. This meant the onset of the second stage, during which the boss becomes several times stronger and more deadly. During the frenzy, the cat's speed and damage are increased. Since this is just a beginner boss, this effect is limited in time. As long as Sleeping Moon continues to control the battlefield, this shouldn't be a problem at his level of play. At this point, the out-of-breath leader said that he was too fast, so he couldn't hit him, let alone finish him off. But after the boss reached red blood, he started making too many mistakes. Either he started to panic, or he ran out of mana. He started playing as if he was a completely different person. And at that very moment, the monster knocked him to the ground, not giving him the opportunity to get up. The moon loudly and discontentedly declared that he had pressed the wrong key and was unable to keep the boss on him, after which he asked everyone to be more careful. Sunny continued to watch silently as they continued their battle, preparing to attack right after he stabilized the provocation on himself. After another failure, the leader asked what to do, because he was running straight at him, but Sunny was still waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, Fallen Sun loudly declared that he was going to die anyway, so they had to continue the battle, after which he began to spray the monster with pistols. However, these attempts failed to cause any damage to the monster, and so it simply ignored the bullets that hit it. When the cat came too close, the boy realized that he wouldn't have time to dodge, so he missed the decisive blow to himself. Before disappearing, he apologized, while the wizard screamed that the cat was already running towards him and that he had screwed up. Unlike the fallen sun, the wizard tried to run away, shouting help out loud to himself, but the clawed paw was already catching up with him. Looking at his comrades, Sleeping Moon wearily asked what kind of mockery this was, and how they could die so easily. He then asked Lord Grimm if he still had mana, because if they combined their powers, they would definitely be able to win without any problems. But as soon as the guy turned his attention to the one he had appointed as a support, he was immediately surprised that he relaxed and pressed himself against a tree. After which Sunny turned his head with a smile and wrote in the chat that everything was fine with him, he should first take care of himself. Reacting with lightning speed, the leader of the group began to parry the blows that the ghostly cat was delivering, not wanting to stop. Almost exhausted, the moon asked the Lord to stop mocking him and asked for treatment, because he was bleeding. Sunny replied that he couldn't, because if he did, he would provoke him, in response to which the blonde promised that this wouldn't happen. However, he did not dare to listen to the order, continuing to watch as the group leader fought the boss alone. The month loudly shouted into the chat that he would not provoke him on himself, and asked to believe, and when asked what to do, he asked to heal him quickly. The Lord wrote in the chat that he was moving well again and pressing buttons, after which he asked that he had stopped pretending. However, what a pity, he can't kill the boss alone, allowing the rest of the party to die, which guaranteed the change in the rules to selection. He needed at least some kind of team. All that was left was to choose the right moment for misses. Killing all his teammates, the cat would be left alone with him. Thus, he guaranteed himself the entire reward. After reading this, the month realized that the Lord had understood everything from the very beginning, realizing that this guy was smart. He replied that he really wanted to get rid of these newcomers, and with his screams he caused even more panic, and they did not suspect anything. In such a situation, the healer usually tries to save his team every now and then by using skills. With these actions, he would focus the boss on himself. After that, he would have died. But the moon miscalculated. This guy kept as far away from the others as possible all the time. But this is impossible. He tried to treat everyone as much as possible, but perhaps he was able to do everything so perfectly in such a mess. However, while the group leader was thinking about this, a ghost cat jumped on him from above and was able to inflict significant damage on him with its claws. The moon understood that he would definitely die if the Lord did not heal him, after which he suggested that he forget about it and start acting together. Fighting off the monster and bleeding, he asked his ally what difference it made, because they didn't know those guys, and by uniting they could win. He offered to split the reward in half, which was a great deal, but Sunny smirked and replied that he wanted it all. The moon decided to suggest that the Lord should choose what he wanted first, and then he would take what was left, but he didn't fall for it. Then the blonde shouted that if he died, he would not get anything, because he would die after him without the opportunity to kill the boss. Sunny wrote in the chat that he was not to be worried about, after which he asked the group leader to just die and let him finish. The blonde understood that he had run out of arguments to try to negotiate with the guy, and therefore he could do nothing. Swinging his huge paw, the Midnight Cat delivered a decisive blow to the leader of the group, cutting him in half. Before losing all his health and disappearing, Sleeping Moon addressed Lord Grimm, saying that he would pay for this. After Sunny heard that he would not have a place on the 10th server, he looked into the red eyes of the boss, who was growling in anger. Now it was his time to act. The boy reached behind his back, taking out the umbrella of 1,000 possibilities, while the cat rushed to attack. The guy reacted instantly, stepping out in front of him with his weapon and opening it to change it to the shape he needed. The next second, the umbrella took the form of a spear, thereby making it possible to keep the necessary distance from the monster's claws. The transformation of the weapon was accompanied by a bright light that illuminated the joyful face of the hero, ready to rush into battle, after which he used the spearman's skill, Dragon Fang, with which he tried to attack the angry beast head-on. When Shawnee woke up, she cried out that she had accidentally fallen asleep, since it was difficult to sit up late at that age, and then noticed that someone had covered her up. She glanced at Sunny, who continued to play carefree, and thought that it was his jacket. He was quite caring, although he didn't seem so. However, she was very confused by the stench coming from the jacket. She wondered how long it had been without washing, but she did not dare to ask out loud. Suddenly, the girl noticed the guy's fingers, which were quickly moving across the keyboard, without stopping for a moment. She thought his hands were quite beautiful, very thin, with long fingers, and he took very good care of his nails. This didn't match his appearance at all, after which she looked at the monitor, thinking that there was no way he was stuck in the rookie village. Her eyes widened in surprise when she noticed the boy fighting the enraged boss alone, finishing him off. People on the street who were passing by the internet cafe heard a loud female scream as she asked about the first murder. Shawnee said it was cool. He actually got the first kill on a hidden boss, and even soloed it, asking how he did it. The guy replied that nothing special. The entire team died. The boss's health was almost at zero. The girl congratulated him on this achievement. She was pleased that the first kill of the hidden boss happened in her cafe, and so she handed him a can of drink, saying that she was very happy. The first kill will remain on the list forever. Even though the Midnight Cat is the starting boss, it's a completely different story because the server has just opened. But the first kills on subsequent bosses will be impossible to get without tactics and teamwork. This is the loot for professional teams. Then she decided to look at what he had gotten. There were 5 cat claws, a wool bib, and some good valuable materials. He also got a skill book straight from the starting boss. Shawnee was delighted and asked what was wrong with his luck. The number of skill points a max-level player can obtain is 4,000, and this item is a way to exceed that limit. The next second, the owner was shocked once again when she saw that Sunny decided to use it right away, despite the rarity of the item. The guy said it was account-bound and not transferable, although most people would think twice before using it. Then suddenly, they noticed a chat in which Sleeping Moon wrote that the newbie Lord Grimm had not healed his party members in order to steal the hidden boss. The copied message came one after another. Someone even asked him to stop, but he continued to warn the players. When asked what was going on and who was insulting him, Sunny decided to tell her everything that had happened, after which Shawnee screamed that he had no shame. And then she looked into the face of the calm guy and asked if he was angry. But he replied that he was very angry, but he didn't look that way. With a cigarette in his mouth, Sunny said that just because he was angry didn't mean he should show it to everyone around him, which would only make things worse. For a split second, the girl thought that Sunny had just smiled, and it was not surprising, because he had taken the first kill and received a rare item. However, there was no other reaction. Well, even after he was slandered, his facial expression remained the same. During their short conversation, the hero reached a new location, near which a lot of people had also gathered, where people were gathering a team. As he walked towards the gates, he heard whispers from different players, where his nickname was heard from time to time, but this did not bother him at all. Shawnee commented out loud that this Sleeping Moon was a very nasty person, since Sunny had just appeared in the system notification. His name is written at the entrance to the Green Forest. He is too noticeable, and now, no one wants to be on the same team with him. All the players now know about him. Suddenly, the Dark Lord turned his attention to a loudly laughing guy, whom he immediately recognized from the recent dungeon. Sleeping Moon shouted that he would make him regret ever joining this server, and then suggested that they spam together some more. At that very moment, Sunny had an idea that would allow him to both deal with the moon and get a place on the team. Approaching the blonde, he called out to him and waved his hand. He was frightened by the surprise and screamed, recognizing the impudent fellow. Sunny asked that they were missing one person, so why don't they add him to the team, offering to level up together. Smirk, the blonde asked what happened, deciding that the guy came for mercy, calling him really pathetic. After which he noticed with surprise that they had received an application to join the group from the Dark Lord, which caused him to freeze for a moment. Sunny confirmed his words, adding that he was missing one person on the team, so they could take him with them. When asked if he was sick, the hero replied that he was alone, that he was missing a participant, everyone knew the basics, and that teamwork was needed here. After hearing the explanation of the basics, Moon said to himself that this guy was driving him crazy, but he didn't say anything out loud. He also didn't understand what happened to his tone. He actually decided to join them, obviously starting some kind of game. His ally asked in the team chat what he was thinking, urging him to add the guy, but the blonde was still hesitating. There were too many people gathered, so their team did not want conflicts, because they understand perfectly well that now they are in the wrong. You just need to finish him off somewhere, outsiders. All 4 people are members of their fraternal guild. The Moon thought that this made sense, and since he himself had come into his hands, let him not blame him for this, but he would definitely finish him off. The notification sounded that Lord Grimm had joined the team. Shawnee screamed, "Wasn't this the thief who had slandered him?" When asked why he teamed up with them, Sunny replied because he didn't have his own team, but the girl didn't accept this argument. She stated that it would be better for him to go alone. He has a good weapon, so he could level up solo. No need to form a team. But if you think about it, he has a silver weapon that deals several times more damage than a normal one. There is no point in him teaming up with anyone to get through the Green Forest, unless he wants to team up to get through the hidden boss. Thinking back to her first victory over the boss, Shawnee thought that it definitely wasn't just luck, but a calculated move. Looking at the guy for the umpteenth time, she asked herself what kind of person she had taken for granted, after which she said that she would go and sleep and find out in the morning if he was dead. She also added that if he caught a big fish, she would treat him to something because his luck was too good. The guy seems to sense her and knows how he needs to act in order to gain the maximum advantage. Waving goodbye but not looking in her direction, Sunny asked the boss to be careful and continued playing. Upon entering the Green Forest, the group immediately encountered enemy wolves, who attacked the group from all sides. Turning to his comrade Moon via private messages, ordered Tyler to proceed with the plan. Having conveyed this order to the others, they began to beat the beast towards the Dark Lord, saying that they did it by accident. The guy immediately realized what was going on when he noticed that each member of the group was sending another unfinished mob at him. However, Sunny didn't show it, only taking out the 1,000 Possibilities umbrella, while the mobs completely surrounded him, not giving him any passage. The Moon asked the Lord if he could handle them alone, as it would be a shame to die from these weak mobs in the dungeon. Well, the smiling guy replied that there was no need to help him, because he could easily cope alone, after which he swung at the nearest animal, after which all the animals began to crumble under his blows, and group attacks did not bear any fruit. The hero easily held the defense. Under the dumbfounded looks of his teammates, Sunny cut down wolves left and right, not considering them to be anything particularly difficult. The others were shocked and asked how this was even possible, and how a newbie could play like that. Then they realized that he was definitely an experienced player. Tyler noted that with his skills, Lord could complete this raid alone, noting that the wolves were no match for him. Moon said that last time he was a healer, so he didn't know anything about his fighting skills, and besides, he defeated the Midnight Cat without any problems. The result was that his skills were several times superior to theirs, and therefore, he was a very dangerous opponent. Having defeated the last wolf, Sunny headed towards his comrades, who had no words to describe what they had just seen. He asked why they were standing rooted to the spot, to which Tyler decided to answer that it was too simple and boring here. They are now almost at level 10, so a group unanimous decision was made to temporarily change location. Then the guy suggested going to the spider cave. Hearing this, the Moon decided that this was an amazing choice. They couldn't finish him off in the Green Forest, but that doesn't mean they can't teach him a lesson in the spider cave, where it's much more dangerous. This is an area that is absolutely not recommended to be passed at level 10. Even experienced teams always try to bypass it. Having reached the spider cave, the group began to look around, discovering a huge number of slimy cocoons and the bodies of fallen warriors. As they walked further, every player was overcome with tremors, because this place, with its atmosphere alone, could terrify anyone, especially a low-ranking one. Letting the Lord go ahead, they watched him, not paying attention to the fact that under their feet lay bones on which spiders were running. In the private chat, the guys wrote that they already regret their words because they play too little to come here, but they have to go further. But they were only interested in whether they would remain alive after he died, because if there was one less of them, it would be problematic to survive. It's only been a few hours since this server opened. Unless the big guilds have put their hands on it, then this will be the first boss kill. They unanimously decided to use this guy as bait. First collect resources, and then simply lure him to the boss. Sunny asked what was wrong with them. They were unusually quiet today, to which you replied that they were just having some problems with the guild. Tyler asked if everyone had brought the antidote, to which Lord replied in the negative, explaining that it was useless. Suddenly, everyone simultaneously felt something rushing towards them incredibly fast, rustling with several paws. As the spider jumped, the entire team froze in fear, looking at the Lord, who was in a state of complete calm. The tense sleeping Moon realized that danger had appeared. A nearby green spider was casting a poisoning effect. Then he remembered the Lord's words, which he had just said, that he had not taken the antidote with him, because this fool would die from poisoning. At that very second, contrary to the blonde's thoughts, Sunny swung his umbrella, sending the arthropod flying with one blow. The group of players looked up to see a spider flying above them, circling, unable to regroup. Dark Lord. I decided not to wait for the spider to go to the ground. Instead, I headed towards him myself, jumping high. Unable to attack or defend himself in the air, the spider was forced to take 4 hits from the hero. The stunned group at first thought they were all imagining things when the guy landed 4 hits in a row, but it was all real. The spider itself flew back to the wall, smashing the stone with a crash, but did not receive enough damage to die. One of the players heard that such a combo can only be done if the speed is more than 170, but Tyler thought otherwise. After changing a profession, a bonus to attack speed appears, and weapons also play a huge role. They probably have a bonus to attack speed. To maneuver like that, you have to be very fast, at least 200, and it seems that even their leader cannot compare with him. Once everyone had reached their conclusions, the entire group looked at Sleeping Moon, asking who the hell they were trying to provoke. Meanwhile, after 17 consecutive hits, Sunny achieved a crushing victory, finally finishing off the spider without taking any damage. However, now all the monster's attention is on him. The fact is that he is not poisoned because he has never been hit. They all wondered if a level 10 character could deal with 7 monsters at once without dying. And they noticed the Lord's excellent fighting skills and good movement. With such technique, it is quite possible to do the impossible. They admired the strength of the one they wanted to betray, which is why they themselves rushed into battle, deciding to share this battle with their brother, the Dark Lord. One of them asked them not to interfere with the Master's fight, while the Moon tried to stop them, asking if they weren't going to kill him. Filled with inspiration and rage, the 3 guys screamed that they had cleared everything, and they had done it pretty quickly. I would add that their master was Imba. After that, they wanted to head towards the boss, but he got ahead of them, landing right in front of them, raising a curtain of dust in the air. The Spider King was level 15 and had quite a lot of health and was several times larger in size than his brothers. The monster created a poisonous fog, after which Tyler ordered everyone to quickly drink their antidotes. One of the guys offered Lord to drink it, but he replied that there was no need for that, and was asked how he was going to play after the poison effect was applied. Then the hero suggested looking at his status window. It indicated that they were still poisoned, which proved his words. Sunny explained that the antidote level was not enough. The boss was just a higher level. Then Moon suggested that they would not be able to win. Then he asked them to be patient for a little while and wait for him, after which he rushed straight ahead without warning anyone. When the spider saw the approaching hero, it immediately raised its paw to remove the small bug from its path. Getting closer to the enemy, the Lord began to slide on his back, dodging the paw and striking straight at the monster's belly. The damage was enough to pierce the shell and make the spider bleed, after which the guy hurried to his feet. When the king was finished, Sunny ordered one to stand at 1 o'clock and the rest to stand at 7 and 9 o'clock, and to keep a distance of 2 meters. Everyone immediately understood the order, after which the Lord asked the baby to stand up for 4 hours. He was addressing the moon directly. He froze for a second in a stupor, trying to understand whether this guy was talking to him, but then anger began to overcome him. He asked if he had just called him a baby, adding that it was disgusting, but the others asked him not to slow down the team. The blonde loudly asked everyone to close up, asking Lord not to call him that again. Then he wondered why they should listen to him. After all, he is the leader of the group. Then he decided that he would not listen to Lord, but still subconsciously became 4 o'clock. When asked about the comment, he replied that he too thought it was a good position to be in. Then he asked Lord to tell him what he was going to do next. Looking at the team's formation, Sunny asked the leader to be patient, after which he asked everyone to stand there and not move. Meanwhile, the Spider King recovered, making an incredibly high leap towards Sleeping Moon. The dumbfounded guy thought that he was flying straight towards him. This didn't look like a strategy. He was just trying to return the favor. With fear and anger, he mentally turned to Lord Grimm, declaring that his plan had gone too far. He joined his group, acting like he knew nothing, then showed off some weird trick. When idiots start praising him and doing everything he says, it diminishes him as the leader of the group. Moreover, he was stupid enough to fall into his trap, and now he will become a laughingstock. Then he called the Lord a murderer. The moon prepared for his fate, watching the spider flying towards him, but at the very last second, Sunny arrived. Holding an umbrella in front of him, he repelled the attack, thereby saving the group's leader, who did not understand why he did it. The boy then flew into the air, delivering another blow to the spider, lifting it into the air and giving his group time. Then he asked everyone to prepare their skills, because they are about to start. 1 hour, you need to use the front kick. Everyone noticed that the spider moved to the left, thereby getting closer to the person who would strike it next. The one who stood at 9 o'clock must use piercing strikes. Having accepted the order, the guy began to swing his sword. The next order was to use the dissection on the one who is at 7 o'clock. Everything was carried out flawlessly. At the same second, the monster shifted to the right, thereby losing its balance and losing the ability to monitor both sides at the same time. At 4 o'clock, the little moon was supposed to attack. He quietly cursed when he heard such an address addressed to him once again. This anger gave him even more strength to attack. after which he declared that he did not need his instructions, noting that he had a dirty strategy. They pushed the spider back and forth, just like in a pinball machine, but the tactic worked, leaving the monster unable to figure out who to attack. After a few minutes, the king's health dropped to 0, after which a system notification about the first kill popped up. The three players immediately shouted joyfully that they had gotten their first kill, and they had never even dreamed of such a thing. At the same time, in another spider cave, there were other players who also wanted to get the first kill, but noticed that they were beaten to it. The boy rudely threw the axe away, loudly declaring that they only needed 10 seconds. In the notification, he noticed the name of Lord Grimm. Someone asked if he was the guy who claimed the first Midnight Cat kill. He's already appeared in 2 system notifications. The leader of the Blue Stream Guild, Azure Stream, asked to contact all of their people and tell them to inquire about him. Later, at the Bluebrook Guild base, one of the guild members stated that the more he thought about it, the angrier he became. After all, they promised to get all the records on this server, but they managed to fail on the very first day, being late by only 10 seconds. And his guildmate asked him to stop chatting and look at Azure Stream, who looked like he had dropped water. Of course he's not happy. They were supposed to be one of the top 5 guilds. They were always the first to get the first kills. But someone had already passed them twice. The guild leader said that he could actually hear them, and he wasn't angry, just puzzled. Sleeping Moon was the one who took him to the Green Forest. He said that Lord Grimm tried to kill his allies to steal the first kill. The Lord is a pro player hired by the guild, while the people on his team, on the contrary, do not look like experienced players. In other words, if their reports are correct, Lord took the first 2 kills on completely random teams. No one dared to say a word, because what their leader said was the pure truth, which no one could dispute. Suddenly, a system notification sounded, in which the Spider Lord was killed again, but now the team looked a little different. All the guild members read the notifications carefully, reacting to this event in different ways, but everyone had the same conclusion. Azure Stream was the most surprised of all, because his words and guesses had just been confirmed right in front of him. This time, the leader of the group was Lord Grimm, and it was under his command that the Spider Lord was killed. Patak decided to take a break. Taking off his headphones, he rubbed his face with his hand and sighed heavily, because he was haunted by the Dark Lord, who came out of nowhere. The guy, whose name was Simon, approached Lord saying that they would need to get to know each other better. But Lord had no idea about it. Meanwhile, in the spider cave, a small group of players stood near the corpse of a huge spider that had just been defeated. One of the guys said that when the Lord said that he could kill the hidden boss, he didn't believe him. Everyone agreed with his thoughts. After all, he took on the roles of an attacker, a healer, a tactician, and a tank, and also directed them in battle. Even pro players couldn't do that. Tyler told Lord that the spider dropped 4 pieces of strong silk that he wanted, and other things dropped from it as well. Sunny thanked him, said that he only needed them. They could take the rest for themselves, as they deserved it. However, the boys asked him not to be so shy, adding that he should choose something else for himself. They also noticed that the spider dropped a rare purple weapon, which was definitely for a swordsman. Even if you don't use swords, if you equip it now, it can definitely be useful for further leveling. They decided to give it to Lord Grimm, because if it weren't for his guidance, they would never have gotten these things. But Sunny replied that if it weren't for their teamwork, it would have been a little harder for him to defeat the boss alone. The boys were shocked to think that he had said something a little more complicated than impossible, meaning he could have done it without their help. Looking at this picture from the side, Sleeping Moon began to get more and more irritated until he decided to speak. He loudly addressed the hero, attracting his attention, who calmly looked at the screaming and dissatisfied guy. The blonde pointed his finger at him, saying that he was quite an experienced player, and he admitted it. But there was something he wanted to tell him. The angry guy promised to catch up with him one day to fight and see which of them would be stronger. Instead of any answer, Sunny continued to silently look at the guy, who was breathing heavily, feeling uncomfortable with the ensuing pause. Deciding to break the silence, the Lord wished him luck with an indifferent look, realizing that this moment would not come soon. The month was surprised by this answer, while his team began to support him, which was very cool. He asked them to stop laughing at him, because that's how rivalry should work, but his allies simply asked him to give up. As the group exited the cave, Tyler and the other players asked if they could add Lord Grimm as a friend. When Shani woke up, she thought that if he hadn't had a heart attack that year, he would have retired as he wanted. If he were still alive and found out that she didn't go to college, how upset he would be about it. The girl tidied herself up, got ready, and headed to the first floor of the club, saying that she never regretted it. After all, he worked so hard that now this club is very popular, and now she could see the halls filled with people. It only took 9 years of hard work, but it was worth it, as they are now reaping the fruits of their labor. As expected of Glory, despite it being early in the morning and many people had come due to the opening of Server 10, she headed towards the smoking area. There she found Sunny, whom she immediately hit on the head, because he had been playing all night without taking a break. Shawnee asked what level he had reached, and in response she heard 17. She didn't think that getting it in one night was very fast. She wondered how many first kills he had made, to which she heard that he had gotten them from the Emperor Spider and the Spider Lord. She thought in shock that if you add in the Midnight Cat, this guy could get 3 first kills in one night, after which she decided that he probably played on some godlike team, and so she asked to let her see it. The girl screamed loudly when she noticed the same sleeping moon from last night who tried to slander Sunny. She asked him if he ended up working for them for the rest of the night, losing the last of his pride, but he replied that it wasn't that bad. After all, they unanimously insisted that he choose the dropped items first, and he couldn't do anything about it. Shawnee was surprised that he was able to make an enemy his subordinate, while the guy said that he was tired, so he would go and sleep for a while. The girl was delighted with him, so she offered him a snack before bed, but he said that he would eat after he woke up. The boy returned to the small storage room on the second floor of the internet cafe, which was his temporary room. He noticed a cup on the nightstand containing a wrapped toothbrush and toothpaste, and a note was attached to the cup. Shawnee wrote that this was for him, since he didn't take anything with him, and the cost of these things would not be deducted from his salary. He mentally thanked his boss, who turned out to be very caring, after which Sunny wrapped himself in a blanket and fell asleep. When it was 9 o'clock in the evening, the guy went down to the first floor as a crowd of people gathered around the TV, deciding that something had happened. As he got closer, he heard someone calling his name over the speakers and also mentioning his previous account. Interest got the better of him, and so he headed towards the crowd to find out what they were saying about him. Besides the voice of the Veduzego, he heard people whispering that a great player like Sunny had decided to retire. 3-time league champion, 3-time MVP, and 2-time rising star. A team player, Sunny represents the pinnacle of the Glory League and is the standard all players aspire to. They are grateful for these wonderful moments that Sunny gave them, and now the team manager wants to make a statement. Due to his recent failures, Sunny decided to voluntarily retire, but Excellent Era was always prepared for such things. Their new member is sure to become the next God Warrior in the professional league, and he will once again lead Excellent Era to the top of the league. The guy was tired of listening to this news, so he decided to get some fresh air and get ready for his work shift. Going outside, the guy exhaled a cloud of steam, when suddenly he heard a girl's voice nearby which refused to believe it. He noticed Shawnee, who was saying that Sunny's career was still too far from over, and she did not believe that he had resigned voluntarily. After asking her boss if she was crying, she shouted at him for being impudent, then asked him if he felt any emotion at all. Looking up, the guy replied that of course it wasn't like that, he just went outside because he couldn't listen to all this anymore. Shawnee first threw him out, then asked if he had anything to wipe his eyes with. Sunny offered a pack of cigarettes. When the guy lit up, the owner said she was in a bad mood and ordered him to go on duty. When he entered the building, he asked if he could play at the reception. Shawnee replied that he could use this computer. Everything he needed to know was written in the staff manual, and while the guy was turning pages, the owner announced that she was going to bed. Putting his notebook aside, Sunny put on his headphones and inserted his player card, preparing to enter the game for new adventures. He found himself in the middle of a forest road, along which an incredible number of players and NPCs were passing, communicating with each other. At that very second, Tyler called out to him, loudly saying that they had been waiting for him, and that the rest of the night group were with him, except for the moon. He was very upset by the news that Sunny was retiring, so he won't come, because Sunny is his idol. The hero said that since they don't have one person, it will be difficult to kill the hidden boss of the Spider Cave if they meet him again. He decided that there was no point in going there again, and then suggested going to the skeleton cemetery. Everyone unanimously agreed. They arrived at a location surrounded by tombstones and green lights, accessible from level 15. Tyler asked the Lord if he needed anything in that particular dungeon, and he replied that he needed the skeleton warrior's saber. The guy thought that it was useless because it was decorative, but if the Dark Lord wanted it, then he must have a reason. Kneeling down, the entire group asked the dungeon to give them a hidden boss. Sunny noticed that they had developed a love for killing bosses. At that very moment, their screams provoked the ordinary skeletons, who began to rise from the ground, growling loudly. Before the guys had time to say that mobs had appeared, Sunny had already rushed into battle, taking out an umbrella and using a dash. In a moment, he managed to kill 3, while the rest of the group only looked at their leader in delight. However, they did not want to fall behind, and so they themselves rushed into battle, destroying the skeletons one after another. Tyler noticed that these mobs spawned randomly, and then asked why there were so many of them, since they were having a hard time fighting back. In addition to the attack, the Dark Lord managed to heal his allies, who in turn thanked the leader for his help. Since Sunny didn't use voice chat, he couldn't respond to his allies, being completely focused on the fight. The last skeleton was crushed by Lord, who pierced it with an umbrella, creating a powerful shockwave, thus bringing the team victory. They then began to examine the rewards, happy that they had dropped a piece of blue equipment, but they still had not met the hidden boss. Then Sunny suggested going through the dungeon again, to which the whole team agreed because they couldn't wait to see their leader in action again. After a while, Tyler said that they were here for the third time, so the cleanup should go smoothly, but he was happy too early. The first to sense the danger was Lord Grimm, who ordered his allies to retreat quickly. At that very moment, the ground exploded in front of them, raising rocks and a cloud of dust in the air, behind which the true danger was hidden. The dungeon boss appeared, a level 20 skeleton warrior who was completely clad in armor covered in corrosion. The three boys immediately became frightened and ran screaming towards their leader, who remained calm. Then a system notification appeared, informing them that they had entered the resting place of a skeleton warrior. Sunny was glad that the hidden boss had finally appeared, although after 2 attempts he had no hope of meeting him. Shawnee, who appeared behind him with a mask on her face, said that she did not think Sunny should resign. The guy got scared and told his boss that it was already midnight, and not only was she not sleeping, but she was also walking around with a mask on her face, as if she was cosplaying as a ghost. As the girl sat down at the nearby computer, Tyler heard a female voice in the chat, then asked Lord if it was his girlfriend speaking. Shawnee said it was because he had gathered so high, that's why when Era got into trouble, he was the first one to be thrown out. She has always followed this team in their competitions, but she feels like Sunny is not as strong as he used to be. The professional league is becoming more mature, and there are now a lot of strong players. Then she asked the guy if he was listening to her, but Sunny just calmly asked her to help him find a guide. Shawnee leaned back in her chair, asking what guide he was interested in. The guy replied that he needed a guide to the skeleton warrior. Hearing this, the girl froze in shock, looking at her subordinate. She then asked loudly why he didn't read it before engaging in a fight with the boss, but the guy didn't answer. Sunny said that they forgot to look at the guide, and Shawnee, after taking off her mask, asked to remind them which boss they were talking about. The guy answered, adding that he needed to know how to make the saber drop from him with a 100% chance. The girl did not understand why he needed it. After all, she is nothing more than a decoration, so no one is hunting for her, when suddenly she actually found a guide written by Sunny himself. He's definitely a big fan of Sunny's. No wonder he knows about it. The guy was wondering how many times he had to hit the belt buckle. Shawnee replied 24 times. There is also a picture of the place where you need to hit. Sunny asked to enlarge it and let me see. The girl said that the boss tried very hard to help him, but he glanced at her and quickly thanked her. She immediately shouted that she had put a lot of effort into the search and he had just glanced at it, after which she asked him to pay more attention to it. While the guy was standing AFK, the rest of the team was calling him, because if he didn't come back as soon as possible, no guide would save them. They were already at their limit because the boss had switched to attack mode, and it was very difficult for them to defend themselves against such a monster. Then suddenly they noticed that someone had used the cure on Tyler. Realizing that Lord Grimm had returned, the hero stood in full combat readiness and apologized for the delay. But during this time he received all the information he wanted. The signal sounded, one of the players said that health had been restored, but because of this the boss was distracted by him. But the guy said that this was exactly what he wanted, and then rushed into the attack, while the others asked what kind of technique it was. Along the way, Sunny gave orders to the 7th field to run to the left, and Cloudy Sunset to stand behind. Drifting Stream should go to the right. Everyone immediately accepted the order, but when they asked if he was going to go head-on, he answered in the affirmative. The first thing that caught the hero's attention was the buckle on his belt, which stood out from the rest of the boss's attire. While the skeleton warrior was swinging, Sunny managed to land 4 blows, after which he jumped back from the monster's blow, increasing the distance. With a sharp jerk he approached again, continuing to attack the buckle, already delivering the 8th blow, the skeleton's slowness playing into his hands. While the boss raised his sword, the hero did not attack anything except the buckle, delivering the 11th blow in a row. One of the players said that the character without specialization does not take damage, and at the same time fights from the front, and he did the least damage. Shocked, Shawnee, looking at Sunny's actions, I said that he has to constantly dodge, but he still hasn't screwed up the combo. She had a feeling he could do this combo until the end of time, then asked why he needed a guide. Without changing his expression, the guy replied that it was necessary just in case, but it was clear that he was doing just fine without it. He hadn't fought this boss in a long time and thought he had forgotten how many hits were needed, so he decided to play it safe. It would be bad if he accidentally killed him before he got through 24 hits, but now everything was under his strict control. As soon as the last 24 blows were delivered, the skeleton dropped the sword from his hands, screaming loudly, after which the guy decided to cut off his hand. The announcement sounded that the skeleton warrior had been killed. No one had time to understand when and how it all ended. After all, not everyone was just standing in place. Seeing that the boss actually dropped a saber, the hero considered it a success and quickly took it for himself. The rest of the guys felt empty, because they win every time without putting in any effort. Surprised, Shani noted that she only heard 20 hits on the buckle, but the guide clearly stated that 24 hits were needed. Turning around, Sunny replied that 4 of the blows were stabbing, which was all it took to win. Most likely she didn't hear them because they were too fast, but that's what confused the girl, that she didn't notice them. She justified this by saying that he was constantly moving the camera, after which she said that she was tired, reminding him that it was his work shift. At that very moment, the boys said that they wouldn't be able to play all night, and so they decided to call it a day. At that very second, 18 friend requests sent to him by Azure Stream popped up in front of Lord's face. When he accepted the request of this very determined man and opened the chat, Patak introduced himself, saying that he was from the Blue Stream Guild. Sunny thought that the only person he knew in this guild was Juan and his Blue Rain, but he didn't know about this person. Meanwhile, sitting at the computer, Simon thought that now that he knew who he was talking to, he should be flattered. When asked to join them in the dungeon, Lord Grimm asked why they wanted him. The irritated boy mentally replied that, but he had taken both of the first kills, so their guild couldn't achieve anything in this dungeon. One cannot help but acknowledge his good skills because it is easier to find 10,000 soldiers than one general, so one must try to get along with him. Simon offered to take the purple equipment that had dropped from him in exchange for helping them break the completion record. Sunny replied that he didn't need the purple gear. It was more important for him to get rare materials, Simon noted this. When asked what materials they needed, the Lord replied that 72 pieces of spider silk, which dropped from a low-level dungeon. He will also need the mithril pendants that drop from the White Witch. These pendants do not have any properties, so they are just decorations. All his requests are so petty, they can easily fulfill them as many times as needed. For their guild, these are trifles. At that very moment, the boy froze in surprise when the Lord asked for 8 pieces of white wolf fangs, which were already harder to get. White wolf fangs are materials dropped by the Ice Forest boss. But the most important thing is that each player can only enter the forest 4 times a day. Hidden bosses are rare anyway. The chance that the boss will be a white wolf is 2/3. 8 fangs is too much. Simon was confident that he could negotiate a reasonable price with this player in order to get help and see him in action. He began to write that his demands were too great, and therefore he would have to choose and not ask for everything at once. He decided to bargain with the Lord, and he decided to give up the mithril pendant. Simon cried out that the problem was not in it at all. For a while, the guy was shaking with indignation because he realized that it was difficult for him to communicate with a player like the Dark Lord. Sunny asked how much he thought would be a reasonable price, and he was given the choice of either silk or fangs. An irritated Simon waited for an answer, and at that very second, the Lord decided to choose the fangs of the White Wolf, which did not please the guy very much. After all, this player is clearly not stupid. He knows that fangs are much more valuable than silk, but he somehow managed to come to an agreement with this guy. Suddenly, the Lord asked what he thought about adding some more elastic silk to it, which he also needed. A stunned Simon decided that he had no shame or conscience at all, while his interlocutor suggested adding only 40 pieces. Simon, who thought he had already reached an agreement with the Lord, tried to figure out what was wrong with the man, but he continued to bargain. Sunny, with a calm face, continued to write in the chat the possible amount of silk, gradually decreasing the number, stopping at 25, after which the number dropped by 1, and each such message was like a blow to the heart for Simon. Then he screamed that he couldn't do it anymore. After asking what was wrong with him, he said that he was actually reducing their number 1 by 1. But a guild like Blue Stream definitely shouldn't haggle over a single piece of silk. That would be too awkward. Throwing himself on the back of the chair, the guy said that they would get everything. Then, that he was finally able to deal with him. Suddenly, the Lord asked to give him a couple more mithril pendants, because he said that he didn't care about them. Simon didn't care anymore. He just wanted it to end. and so he calmly replied that he would get everything. Sunny asked how they would divide the things with the hidden boss. He was told that he would be the first to choose what to take. Azure Stream reminded him to change his class before leaving, but he replied that it was not necessary. Putting his head on the table, Simon screamed that he just wanted to come to an understanding with him, but instead he had to bargain. Asking for so many materials it looks like he's taking a contract job, he's unlikely to make every effort to help them. Well, suddenly he thought that he might be even stronger than the elite of their guild. He wouldn't be able to break the record just by waving his weapon. But that's just impossible. He's only level 20, and he just flushed a whole bunch of hard-to-get materials down the toilet. After some time, the members of the Blue Stream Guild reached the Icy Forest, which was level 20 and was a challenge for many players. The wizard immediately asked Patak how the conversation with that man went. The guy replied that he agreed and should come soon. He then turned to everyone else, said that the expert he had called would soon arrive, and then asked who would give him their place. The archer replied that this time he would sit on the sidelines. Patak thought that the Lord was still not there, so he did not understand whether he could count on him. At that very moment, Sunny approached, and the tank screamed that this was Glory's world, after which he asked why he was wearing such clothes. The Lord was wearing a knight's shoulder pads, a swordsman's combat gloves, and a mage's scarf, which at first glance seemed incompatible. Azure Stream noticed this mixed class build and said he thought he was joking when he said he wouldn't pick a class, after which he decided to introduce him to everyone. He pointed at Thunderlight, Flower Lantern, and Floating Boat, who were the guild's elite. Their classes, as well as equipment, were selected specifically to break the record of the next dungeon. Sunny greeted him, asking for a second to prepare. Patak replied that he could join the team when he was ready. The guild chat immediately started asking if someone like him could help them break the record, but everyone was skeptical. Simon, looking at the monitor screen, just sighed heavily, realizing that it was very difficult to play with this guy. It was starting to irritate him, and he didn't understand what Lord Grimm was doing at all, and why he kept delaying their team. The healer noted that perhaps this guy doesn't choose his class because he wants to play a character without a specialization. Such characters are a thing of the past. If you do not choose a class, you will not be able to complete the Ascension quest. They will not be able to level up above level 50. Even if he changed classes after reaching level 50, he would still lack attribute points. They then asked Patak if he had seen who he had found, after which they gave him a disapproving look. But he only asked why they were looking like that. Then the guys said it was a new server, so everyone was level 20 or so it wasn't a big deal that it wasn't specialized. Tank asked if he had brought enough weapons, since he still hadn't chosen a class, and then asked him to make sure he didn't get confused. However, the Lord did not respond to this, continuing to stand in place, which caused the wizard to laugh. The guy turned to the tank, saying that he was AFK and therefore ignored everything that his guildmate was telling him. However, Sunny did not go anywhere, noticing that he had collected all the necessary materials, and the umbrella of 1,000 chances could now be improved. First, he needs to use the Midnight Cat's claws by replacing the tip, then the weapon will have new properties. Ignoring the conversations of the people from the guild, the hero continued to improve his weapon, trying not to miss anything. Next, he needed to use the remaining claws to replace the ribs of the umbrella, thereby increasing its durability and attack. All this together gave an increase to the 5th level and quite good characteristics, significantly strengthening it. The research into the design of the 1,000 Chances umbrella is almost complete, and he has a rough idea of what he will need for the remaining parts. After which the guy removed the inventory window, and Azure Stream noticed that he had returned, mentally thanking him for having such a weapon. The guy then asked if he could join their guild for a while, otherwise the record would not be recorded in their name. Sunny agreed. Above the character, in addition to his name, the name of the guild he had just joined immediately appeared. The guild leader, delighted, suggested that they finally begin, since they had already sorted out all the details. But the Lord again asked him to wait, carefully examining the equipment of the team that would enter the dungeon with him. Each had a level 20 purple weapon, and they all had different abilities backing them up with the others. Flower Lantern loudly asked what he was staring at. Since their equipment was the best for this level, Flo asked him to calm down. In response to this, Sunny stated that if they wanted to break the record, he suggested changing the classes a little, stating that they did not need a healer. Everyone was immediately surprised while the tank was only indignant with anger, and the lyricist, who had been decided to be abandoned, smiled guiltily. Unable to bear it, the tank grabbed the Lord by the chest, asking if he thought they came here to joke, and why they didn't need a healer. The Dark Lord once again confidently stated that they did not need a healer, and that it would be better to take a high-damage class instead. Smiling awkwardly, Azure Stream whispered to him that his idea seemed unreliable, but he replied that it would be more stressful. But everyone here was an expert. If they stand in the right places and turn around in time, they won't need a heal. He was told that the main tank would need a heal. Sunny knew about this, so he said that they didn't need a tank either. This phrase struck Flower Lantern in the heart. Then asked what he was going to do with the boss and who would hold aggro. Pointing at the guy, he asked if he would do it. The Lord calmly replied that he could take on this role, keeping the boss on himself for as long as necessary, which angered the tank even more. The thread realized that the guy didn't want to go through the dungeon with a team consisting entirely of DPS classes because there are such methods of clearing. Tank asked why Patak was agreeing to this idiotic plan, but he was curious as to how Lord was going to pull it off. Flower Lantern angrily asked Floating Boat to leave the group with him, saying that they should go with the other two. At that very moment, Lunar Grace, whose class was a witch, teleported to them, and after greeting them, she asked if they needed her help. The Lord approached the girl and asked which skill branch she had chosen. She confidently answered that it was the Dark Path style. He then asked if she was teaching the doll Shururu, to which the girl replied that she had this skill, which made Sunny happy. He said that in that case everything was fine, after which he asked everyone to get ready, because they would soon be moving out. When the girl asked if Patak would be in charge, the guy did not answer that the leader today would be the Dark Lord, and everyone should obey him. Unable to bear it, the tank asked what he and the command were giving him, wondering if everything was okay with their leader's head. When the witch asked again why this guy was in charge today, Sunny replied that they definitely had to break the record, after which the renewed group went into the freezing forest. As soon as they retreated to the snowy ground, they began to look around carefully. Sunny said that the presence of we will make the passage much easier. You can kill them in one wave, but Patak did not understand the meaning of the idea. The Lord began to explain that the passage of one wave would look like this. He would collect the monsters, the witch would use the doll, after which the flame would be used. Flow. Some goblins are capable of using ranged and magical attacks. Moreover, they all look the same. And in the heat of battle, it will be too difficult to figure out who is who, which means battle tactics will need to be constantly changed. The Dark Lord only looked questioningly at the guild leader, since he was not the captain and tactician of the group today. The stream immediately gave in, saying that if he wanted to go through everything in one wave, then they would do as he said, because today he was the leader. It wouldn't be that easy. Simon hoped he wouldn't die right after trying to tan all the monsters. However, the guild leader decided to first discuss their plan in more detail, but at that very second he noticed that the Lord had already rushed to attack. The first thing Sunny did was chop down a huge tree to clear away the fog of war and see what was hidden behind it. Not far from them, a huge horde of short green creatures had already gathered, which were clearly not in a peaceful mood. The first rows of goblins immediately grabbed their bows and began to pull the string, aiming straight at the group of players. The magician declared that they were finished and would all die. The witch supported him, adding that there were a lot of ranged monsters there. The stream shouted to the Lord that he wouldn't be able to dodge. There were melee warriors behind him that they couldn't handle. Simon suggested that they retreat and enter the dungeon later, but Sunny did not react to these words in any way, continuing to quickly click on the keyboard. Without losing his concentration, the Lord used incredible speed in his roll and dash, cutting through the goblins like a knife through butter. The guy noticed that just now it was the legendary Z-swing, a way to quickly change direction left and right. The surprised witch asked Patak if he could do the same, to which he replied that under normal conditions it was not difficult to do. However, during a battle, this is on the verge of fantasy, because not every person will be able to react and press the necessary combinations. Therefore, he concluded that Lord Grimm was definitely a great expert, which was why he gave him command. She must have asked how he managed to find such a player, since it was hard to believe that he used Z-oscillation during the fight. The stream decided to see how he would gather the monsters together. This action plays too important a role if they want to pass in one wave. Meanwhile, Lord Grimm ran straight into the thick of his enemies, casting a spell as he went so that no one could interrupt him. Meanwhile, a horde of goblins ran screaming straight towards him. Feeling no fear or risk, they had to destroy the intruders. Sunny used the Battle Mage skill, Falling Flower Touch, which pushed away those who stood right in front of the hero. This skill is really strong at pushing away monsters, but it's not very good at gathering them together. Suddenly, he noticed that the touch of the falling flower had worked, and all the goblins had gone into a rage mode, targeting Lord Grimm. He actually managed to gather them together, but there are too many of them. Is it possible for one person to gather such a large number of monsters so quickly? Jumping into the air, Sunny pointed his hand downwards, casting the spell again, doing a great job of taking out the remaining monsters. Everyone was immediately surprised that he actually managed to gather them all in one place, even though he is the same level as them, but he acts as if he is beating up noobs. At that very moment, the goblins surrounded the Lord from all sides, waving their clubs and getting closer and closer, giving him no room to retreat. The witch asked when they would start attacking, since the Lord could no longer return to them due to the large number of enemies. The stream, in shock, asked not to look at him like that because he himself does not understand anything, Lord Leader, so they are waiting for his instructions. Running around the goblins, Sunny gathered them all into one pile, after which he forced them to chase him across the snowy clearing. The stream noticed that there were so many monsters there, but he broke through, and most likely lost a lot of health because of this, but he still had 75% left. This information pleased the guild leader, but it was unclear why the guy was running further and further away from them, leading the goblins away. The monsters will still chase him until they catch up, because he will simply die, and all their plans will collapse. However, the guild leader underestimated the abilities of Sunny, who never rushed into trouble without having a clear plan in mind, unless he could somehow get to them by air, but that was simply impossible. At that very second, Sunny gave the umbrella the shape of a rifle. Having risen into the air, the hero fired a single shot, without really aiming. This was necessary to get momentum for the rebound. Looking up, the entire group noticed that the Lord had flown right over them, breaking free from the encirclement of the massive horde. Sunny landed next to them, and Flo noticed that it was a gunslinger skill that allowed him to move through the air using the recoil. Arrows can fly in the opposite direction from the line of fire. The stronger the weapon's recoil, the further the character flies. The witch loudly asked Azure Stream to stop analyzing, because a crowd of goblins was already running towards them. Sunny ordered the mages to attack, and the witch to prepare to use the doll. Everyone immediately got into a fighting stance, accepting the order. As the entire company charged at the goblins, Stream ordered everyone to obey the Grim Lord if they wanted to go through it in one wave. To do this, they must not allow the purchased ones to counterattack, and therefore they must take an attacking position as quickly as possible. Sunny asked the mage to prepare a raging flame. He immediately began to cast fire around himself, directing it at the horde. Not expecting this, some of the goblins immediately began to burn in the fire, losing some of their combat units that were in front, after which the order was given to use the blizzard, directing the flow of magic to another part of the goblins, who were engulfed in freezing cold. The goblins that had survived the attack or were behind continued to run forward. The monsters were too far apart from each other. Some of them were hit, and the reload was too long. The Lord ordered the witch to quickly use the doll. The girl cast a spell, sending a small copy of herself forward, thereby attracting the attention of the goblins. The doll provokes all monsters within a radius of 2 meters, causing the monster's aggression to switch to it. But there was one drawback. The doll has too little health. She won't be able to hold out for long, because she was literally attacked from all sides. However, Lord Grim declared that this was enough for him, after which he soared into the air, seeking to attack his opponents. Landing on the ground, the guy created a shockwave that pushed back the monsters closest to him. Azure Stream shouted that they were getting up. At the same moment, Sunny asked the Swordmaster to use the falling light sword. Simon, as if reading his thoughts, was already preparing this ability, swinging his sword towards the tenacious goblins, after which his sword fell to the ground, creating a whirlwind of blades around the caster, which fell upon the monsters. The wizard said that their leader was cool, but he replied that it was too early to rejoice, because the recharge of this ability was too long. If the monsters rise up and attack again, they will all kick the bucket here and not come through in one wave as they planned. The boy didn't know what to do, wondering if the Dark Lord had learned any AoE skills from other classes. But as it turned out, Sunny had a different plan. He calmly but confidently asked the witch to use the Cloak of Shadows. The girl smiled and stated that she understood, after which she began to cast the required spell, waving her magic wand. The goblins were immediately enveloped in a shadow that swept them into one pile and lifted them into the air, preventing them from escaping anywhere. She then abruptly brought her hand down, causing all the goblins to fall to the ground, stunning them and incapacitating them. Azure Stream had completely forgotten about this spell. Now they had enough time for the cooldown of the skills to finish. Simon knew this guy was something else. He was using skills that weren't usually intended for crowd control. He wouldn't have been able to pull all this off if he hadn't been very experienced in different classes, but it happened that the passage of one wave was completed. However, this was not the end, so Sunny urged everyone to hurry up so that they could break the long-awaited record. At the same time, in a private chat, Flower Lantern asked if they were alive, to which Flo replied that the guy was just a damn god. As they headed to the next location, Simon wrote that the Lord led them through the dungeon in one wave, which surprised the tank greatly. Simon smiled smugly, thinking only that at this pace, they would definitely be able to set a new record. The group stopped in front of a sleeping goblin that was different from all the others, and they immediately became quieter. The final boss of the Ice Forest, Ice Emperor Thane, didn't look that strong, but he was level 25. In response to the girl's remark, Patak asked her not to be stupid. Although he was the size of an ordinary goblin, he was much more dangerous. He is also the first boss in Glory to have a name. And while he was explaining this to her, he didn't notice that Sunny had already rushed into battle. The guild leader called out to him, but the Lord ordered everyone to get started and deal as much damage to the goblin as they could. Having risen into the air, the guy decided to use an infinite air combo, while everyone was amazed at his abilities. Then, they decided to quickly help him, when suddenly they noticed that the boss suddenly disappeared from sight, having returned from the attack. Azure Stream stated that he had teleported, and then asked them not to attack so that they wouldn't become tanks. If someone becomes one now, then considering that the entire team consists of attacking classes, they could all die. At that very second, they noticed that the boss had decided to attack them from behind, but the magician did not have time to react in time. The goblin also didn't expect that the guy would have to rely on an ally who would hit the monsters in the back to stop him. Everyone immediately realized that this was a shadow clone, the Lord somehow managing to keep up with the Ice Thane's teleportation. And his attacks didn't slow down at all, which is only possible in theory, but the hero demonstrated all of this clearly. Still fighting, Sunny asked everyone to attack him, adding that they would not become tanks, to which they replied that they would give it their all. The next second, a stream of blows and spells fell on the boss, apparently noticing that she really did not become a tank, having inflicted maximum damage. Potok asked how he was so good at keeping the taunt, since this boss has a special attack pattern and usually requires 2 tanks. Otherwise, it would be difficult to hold him, to which Lord Grimm calmly replied that he simply deals more damage than them. Simon could hardly believe these words, but the Lord had already proven that he could do the impossible. The whole group looked at the DPS rank in shock, noticing the Lord from above, concluding that he was not only a tank, but also a DD. The boss's health bar is almost red. When this happens, he will enter super armor mode, and no one will be able to interrupt his attacks. The same second they said, super armor appeared, so the whole group decided to retreat temporarily to come up with a strategy. Stream noticed that the Lord did not retreat, but he knew this dungeon like the back of his hand and knew what was about to happen. After he gets super armor, Ice Thane always uses the Ice Vortex spell, and if you don't retreat, you'll 100% get hit by it. But once again, Lord Grimm proved that he was capable of going against the system by grabbing a goblin and throwing him over his shoulder. Using a back throw, he interrupted his attack and canceled the super armor, something that the stunned Simon could not have expected. The rest of the group looked at this in shock, thinking that in such a situation they would definitely not have thought of this. Everyone concluded that characters without specialization were really cool, unlike some, and then they looked at the guild leader. The flow of why they are looking at him, it is better to look at the boss, because he is almost a corpse. That is why I need to finish him off quickly. They did this fairly quickly, after which a system notification appeared announcing that Ice Thane had been killed. A second window appeared, congratulating the Blue Stream guild players on setting a new record, clearing time 20 minutes, 24 seconds. All the guild members were immediately happy that they were able to do this, setting a new record. Only Sunny kept his composure. After clearing his throat, Azure Stream turned to the hero, saying that it was a wonderful job, which he had done simply perfectly. However, his throw behind his back was very risky. If he missed, they would all die. In response to this, the Lord also decided to ask a question. Whether he had learned the circle slaughter, Simon knew it could break the super armor, but he was so afraid of failing that he decided not to use it. The guy tried to justify himself, but Sunny asked him to learn this ability. It is very useful against bosses with super armor. Stream replied that he didn't have enough skill points, so he didn't learn it, when suddenly the witch said that she remembered everything, and he learned this ability. She also asked if he ran away at the end, at which time Simon put his head on the table, asking her to stop. The guild leader was able to set a new record, but was not very happy, as he made an incredible number of mistakes. When they came out of the dungeon, they were met at the exit by a tank and a healer, who praised them, because they saw how they fought. All the players who were in the dungeon decided to share their impressions, except for Patak, who had mixed feelings about the passage. Everyone was talking about how they had managed to break the record, while the tank told Sunny that he was actually God. This was truly worthy of respect. He then apologized to the boy for his rude behavior, and the cleric asked how they managed to do all this. Azure Stream replied that it was thanks to the Lord. He then asked Floating Boat to give him what they had promised, after which Sunny counted the inventory items. He noticed that they had given him too much, but he clearly remembered that they had not agreed on that much, and therefore wanted to discuss this issue. At that very second, Patak came up to him, saying that everything was right. After all, he helped them beat the record by a whole 5 minutes. Players from the Herbal Garden and Tyrant's Ambition had most likely already noticed the new record, so he decided to ask in the chat what they had to say about it. Plantain Seed replied that they had managed to recruit an expert. Simon immediately realized that Plantain Seed was now furious. Under normal circumstances, he always talked to him with clever little phrases, but now he imagined him gritting his teeth. Most guilds always compete with each other, and they also act as a reserve for professional teams. One of the main reasons for their appearance on new servers is the search for recruitment of strong players, and they are not the only ones doing this. Herb Garden and Tyrant's Ambition, they most likely also have their eyes on Lord Grimm, since it is unlikely that they do not know about him yet. However, whoever got there first got it, and he will definitely try to recruit the Lord into their guild, no matter what it costs him. Their guild couldn't pass up the opportunity to get such a valuable player who would wipe the noses of other guilds. Azure Stream approached the Lord, wanting to talk to him alone. Sunny turned his head in his direction, listening attentively. But the next second, Simon noticed a system message that said that the player Lord Grimm was leaving the guild. This action stunned the guy, and at that very second Zerno wrote to him, asking how it happened that he couldn't hold him back. He replied that the Lord could do whatever he wanted, and he himself thought that the Herbal Garden was watching them. They found out about everything too quickly. Continuing to examine the inventory, Sunny concluded that with these materials, he would be able to improve the 1,000 Possibilities umbrella. Suddenly, the 7th field sent him a message with congratulations. The hero replied that he would be able to enter the dungeon 3 more times today. As soon as he asked to gather a team, Tyler clicked on him in the voice chat, calling him to himself, since he was already nearby. The guy said it was the Bluebrook Guild. They would definitely give a lot to keep him. He wondered why he left. For a player with such exceptional skills as Sunny, not joining a guild means he can work with anyone. The Lord replied that he worked for those who paid him more and did not want to be bound by the framework of one guild. Tyler responded that because of how well he plays on this server, they will fight for him, and then he will be able to choose who to work with. At the same time, the guy thought that despite this, he wanted to go with them to the dungeon. He was not only a great player but also a saint. However, Sunny hadn't thought it through that far, so he asked for equipment that would increase damage and prepared to enter. After some time, the visitors of the Happy Internet Cafe wished Sunny good morning, thanking him for his hard work. The guy replied that his shift was over, so he would be back by night, after which he headed to his room. He heard Shani sneeze in her room, sleeping uncovered on the sofa in front of the TV. He didn't pass by. Carefully taking the blanket, he covered the girl so that she wouldn't catch a cold, trying not to interrupt her sleep. Then he went to his little room, taking off his jacket to get ready for bed himself, as he had been exhausted by the night. He lay down on the bed, wrapped in a blanket, while the sunlight came through the only window, warming the boy. Shani was tossing and turning in her sleep, and it seemed to her that she was dreaming something dynamic, which was why she could not lie still. The next second, she simply fell off the sofa, entangled in the blanket, screaming loudly, more from fear than from pain. She sat up on the floor, trying to figure out where she was and what had happened. But sleep still didn't leave her body. A minute later, she realized that she had fallen asleep on the sofa again, when she suddenly noticed the blanket, although she clearly remembered that it was not there. The girl guessed who could take care of her like that, and so she decided to check what Sunny was doing now. She found the guy in his room, sleeping like a log, not paying attention to the creaking of the door and the passing sunlight. While brushing her teeth, Shani thought about how lately she often watches TV series and then suddenly falls asleep. Then she wakes up cold in the middle of the night and drags herself to her room. But that was a completely ordinary thing. But this was the first time in a long time that someone had taken care of her and covered her with a blanket. Even though it was a simple act, it meant a lot to her. The smell of the blanket was so familiar, so she thought she was sleeping in her own bed, wanted to turn over on her side, and ended up falling off the sofa. And it's lucky that he's not tall, otherwise she would have damaged her knees, which would be completely inappropriate at her age because she gets tired anyway. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Shani was surprised because rarely did anyone come to her, and now she was not expecting anyone at all. Opening the door, she screamed that little Tina had finally returned. Noticing that Shawnee had just woken up, the girl said that she would wait for her in the hall. She walked into the room carrying a huge black suitcase and a filled backpack, settling herself comfortably. Tina asked about the new employee she had hired. Shawnee realized that she had already been told everything, after which she replied that he lived in the storage room. Now he is sleeping after the night shift. But the girls also said that she had a fight with him on the first working day. She agreed. Suddenly, Shawnee asked how about having a duel between them since this guy is very good at glory. Tina did not expect such a proposal immediately upon arrival, and therefore did not answer, hoping to silently leave the conversation. Looking at her watch, the owner of the internet cafe noticed that Sunny was probably already awake, and therefore they needed to be introduced. Meeting a half-asleep guy with his mouth stuffed with cake, Shawnee immediately introduced him to her friend. Putting her arm around the girl's shoulder, the owner introduced her to the guy, who was still not awake and did not understand what was happening. Tina extended her hand and said hello, nice to meet you, and Sunny shook his hand back, saying it was mutual. Looking at their handshake, Shawnee thought they had incredibly beautiful hands and those long, thin fingers. Tina's hands are so graceful and neat, but Sunny's hands are also very beautiful, despite the fact that he is a man. Then the girl asked who would win. Deciding to find out quickly, Sunny, who had no idea, froze in place. When the guy asked what it was about, Shawnee replied that it was about the duel between them and Glory, because she had been waiting for it all day. Sunny asked Tina if she was into Glory, to which the girl replied that she was just an amateur and only knew the basics. Shawnee asked the guy not to listen to her, because it was modest, and compared to her, Tina was a real pro. To this, Tina said that she was simply not interested. Glory is too easy a game, so it quickly becomes boring. The guy couldn't find anything to say in response to this statement, so he silently and carefully looked at the girl, who could be very strong. After a while, they took over 2 computers while customers surrounded them, saying that Tina was dueling the manager. Everyone immediately recognized the Dark Lord from Server 10, noting that Tina was indeed brave to dare to do such a thing. Shawnee said that Sunny was good, but little Tina was always the coolest girl in their internet cafe. Her reputation was no less than Sunny's. She was a little ashamed to admit it, but every time she lost a duel, she asked her for revenge. Sunny's skills are truly amazing, but will he be able to handle Tina in the arena, since fighting a human is different from clearing a dungeon? Shawnee has a lot of talented players, but when it comes to the arena, Tina has no equal. She will beat anyone. The owner began to remember how she first decided to show Glory to her friend, starting the demonstration from the arena, asking her to watch carefully. At that time, she didn't know about this game yet, but Shawnee wanted it to start playing her, and decided to show her the arena mode first. Shawnee hoped that by watching a high-class player like her, Tina would become interested in Glory and play with her. However, Misty Mist, Shawnee's character, lost the duel time and again, which only caused the girl to embarrass herself in front of her friend. Shouting that the guy was too fast, the owner loudly slammed her fist on the table, and Tina calmly noted that she had lost. In response, Shawnee said that she was playing and at the same time explaining the rules to her. It was difficult for her to concentrate, then asked how she was enjoying the game. In fact, the owner didn't think she would be interested, especially considering her shameful loss. Besides, Tina always looked so casual, it seemed as if nothing could really interest her. But surprisingly, the brunette said that it looked quite funny, after which she asked to sit down at the computer and try. It didn't look too difficult to her, but Shawnee said she only saw 1 round, and her opponent played well. The owner sat her friend down at the computer, briefly explained what to do and where to click, and then sent her into battle. But as soon as Tina tried to play for the first time, the first round went as expected. She was simply beaten, leaving no chance. The girl calmly noted that she had lost. Shawnee replied that it was not surprising because she was not yet used to the controls. After Tina adjusted her mouse sensitivity, she lost again in the second round, and her opponent decided to laugh at her. Shawnee began to explain that she needed to keep her distance since their opponent only had close-range attacks. After explaining the abilities, Tina said that she understood everything and would try again. Shawnee had not seen Tina so serious for a long time. The owner asked her not to be too upset if she lost again, because she had only played 2 rounds, and for a beginner, she was doing well. But when the third round began, Tina tried to use all the tips she received from her friend, not to let the enemy get close to you. Shawnee noticed that her speed had increased significantly. At first, she thought that she had quickly gotten used to the controls, but then she assumed that she was just pressing everything in a row, but all of Tina's combinations were too successful. As a result, a blue sign appeared on the screen with the inscription Victory, which greatly surprised Shawnee, who was watching the fight. After all, in the fourth and fifth rounds, Tina won a crushing victory, and during the fight, she very quickly and skillfully used her abilities. But these are her first matches. She plays for 10 minutes at most, and during this time, she has learned to use her skills correctly and follow tactics. The owner screamed that she was a real genius. With such potential, in the future Tina could become a professional player. She then asked if she had an account card, offering to register it. It was clear that the girl was very excited. At that very second, Tina slowly pulled off her headphones and turned to Shawnee, but realized that she was no longer interested. In a calm tone, the brunette said that she would refuse, because she was bored. And as it turned out, this game was too easy for her. Somehow that's how it was. Even though she tried hard, Tina was no longer interested in the game, even though it was a huge loss. After all, if she had continued playing in glory, she might have become a professional player who would have been taken into a famous team. At that very moment, visitors began to create handmade posters supporting the girl. Shawnee was surprised by such enthusiasm. She thought that they liked Sunny more. She answered that Tina is talented and very beautiful. She talks little and does a lot. They can't abandon a character of such an archetype, and so they began to shout words of support to Tina, wishing her victory. Without changing her calm expression, the girl briefly thanked her new fans, after which she turned to the computer. At this time, Sunny heard that they asked him to tear him apart and wash the floor with his face, and the guy was asked to behave decently. As they began loading into the game, Shawnee told her friend that she should use her launcher again. She explained that the skills remained the same, but the equipment became noticeably better. Tina smiled slightly and agreed. The owner asked the guy what about him, if he would use his account, which was still just over level 20. He agreed, explaining that this was his only account. Then the girl offered to lend him one, specifying what class he wanted. The guy asked to give him a card with a classless character, but in response he heard only a reproach, because no one plays like that for a long time. Tina decided to find out about classless characters, after which Shawnee began to explain the meaning of playing with such a hero with displeasure. She also added that this guy had a lot of tricks up his sleeve, so he asked her to be extremely careful. Shawnee also explained that she is a fixed field. Even a character with the 20th level, the characteristics will become approximately equal to the opponent. However, a character with a higher level and a richer selection of skills, there is nothing to be done about it, so Tina will have an advantage. After finishing the explanations, the players began to enter the fixed field. Now the battle between the Dark Lord and the Misty Mist will begin. They found themselves in an empty arena, surrounded by tall stone columns, and had a few seconds to prepare for battle. Sunny said that fighting just like that was pretty boring, so he suggested putting something on the line, like a pack of cigarettes. Tina agreed, but she doesn't smoke or carry cigarettes with her, so she won't be able to put them down right now. Taking money out of her pocket and putting it on the table, the girl suggested betting 100 yuan each round. It would be easier that way. Shawnee said that she would act as a go-between and hold on to their bills, to which the guy replied that he only had an expensive pack of cigarettes. The owner said cigarettes would do, but Sunny pointed out that he only had a box, and she loudly asked how poor he was. Then she decided to lend him 100, because she could deduct it from his salary later, and he thanked her with a grin. Before they begin, the guy would like to make sure that he can give it his all in a fight against Tina. Shawnee was taken aback by this question, causing her to ask where he got all this confidence from, asking him to focus. The guy decided that this was a sign of consent, so he decided to get the money back right now, after which he rushed straight at the enemy. A crowd of people gathered around Tina, watching her actions and trying to encourage her as often as possible. The girl then stated that Sunny was too self-confident, after which she began to attack him from a distance. The Dark Lord ran straight towards the attacker, not paying attention to the bullets flying in his direction. It was important for him to close the distance. He took out his umbrella, half listening to the sound of spent cartridges falling to the floor, but it didn't break his concentration. Mingla realized that she had lost too much time to inflict any damage on the enemy while standing still. This was her mistake, so the guy decided to use the Swordmaster skill, sword drawing, but Tina managed to dodge. The sword only caught a strand of hair, causing no damage to the girl, but it was too close to ignore. One of the visitors noted that he was able to close the distance without taking damage, but Tina's dodging skills are also amazing. Shawnee thought he used Z oscillation and immediately used the sword pattern, deciding to confuse the enemy first. However, it won't be difficult for Tina to return. If she were in her place, she would have already fallen under this attack, when she suddenly noticed that the guy had already changed weapons. Sunny headed towards Mingla again, not giving her a second to think or take a break, wanting to take control of the situation. Getting as close as possible, he lunged with his sword, but Tina used her rifle to jump away from the blow. Shawnee thought Tina's reaction speed was something else. That jump allowed her to get out of his attack radius. Now she needs to use airfire. The recoil from the shot will allow her to break the distance and at the same time return from any blow. While she was in the air, she noticed that the Lord's weapon began to transform again, which made her a little uneasy. This second's hesitation was enough for the guy to strike her in the shoulder. Changing his sword to a spear, he was able to reach her from a distance. As soon as the spear pierced the flesh, Sunny used the force of inertia to push the girl to the floor, preventing her from escaping. It was a battle mage skill, a circular swing that knocked the girl down but didn't cause any noticeable damage. People noticed that this voiceless character had too many tricks up his sleeve because they were sure that Tina had definitely dodged it. Classless characters are able to use basic skills of all specializations. This is their advantage. Sword drawing cannot be used without a sword equipped, and a battle mage's spear is required to use circle swing. His weapon was weird. His circle swing skill was disorienting, and Tina didn't handle the sudden camera jumps very well. Now the battle was not going in the girl's favor, but now she was maximally focused and did not want to fall flat on her face. Without looking up from the computer screen, she thought that he didn't look like the guy she had encountered in the past. His actions are quite slow, but for some reason she's always half a second behind him, although she does everything faster than him. She understood that she was completely overwhelmed. She couldn't keep up with his pace no matter how hard she tried, but this was no reason to give up. The match had just begun, and although she didn't fully understand his class, it was clear from the night that he preferred to fight up close. Playing as the launcher, she just needs to keep her distance from him. When suddenly she noticed that the guy had disappeared. While she was thinking about all this, the Lord attacked her from above, kicking her in the face, thereby knocking her to the ground again. Before he fell, the girl noticed that his weapon had now turned into a cannon, and so her theory no longer worked. But Sunny was already on top, trampling her into the ground. But this was far from the end, because Mingla still had a lot of health. The Dark Lord pointed his rifle at his enemy with a smug look, and Shawnee noticed that his weapon had now turned into a cannon. Sword, spear, cannon. It turns out there is a weapon that can take 3 different forms, but she had never heard of such a thing before. Frowning, the girl turned her attention to the guy's stance, deciding that this was the sniper executioner skill. And she was right. After that, Sunny started to spray Tina with his rifle, and Shawnee screamed that it was really him because it looked so familiar. While the owner was indignant at what was happening, Mingla's health was decreasing with every second. Shawnee asked her to get up. Besides the owner, the visitors also shouted that it was not the end yet, and that she would cope, because the round had just begun. Hearing the advice and words of encouragement, Tina used her evasion skill, thus interrupting Lord Grimm's attack. After which, without getting up, she pointed her weapon at the guy, wasting no time and pressing the attack button, wanting revenge. The stream of bullets immediately rushed towards Sunny, who was too close to not take damage, but the girl did not expect to kill him right away. However, she was sure that all the bullets had reached their target, and therefore she was able to exchange the health that he had taken from her. When the fire stopped, everyone noticed that the Lord had literally turned into a sieve and continued to stand in place. Tensed, Shawnee was initially happy that her friend had completely turned the tide of the battle, taking the initiative. As she suddenly realized that it was a fixed field, she wouldn't be able to deal that much damage, and she wouldn't be able to kill him with one skill. Moreover, the body should not have turned into smoke. At the same second, Sunny was behind Mingla, holding the sword at her throat. He used the assassin skill, throat slit, thereby removing a significant portion of her health. Tina frowned, cursing under her breath, because she had been outplayed, and what she had just shot at was a shadow clone. While she was distracted, he went behind her, but the next moment the guy used the berserker skill, mountain destruction. He then began to use all the abilities he had, changing the form of the weapon from a spear to a sword and back, after which he soared into the air and began shooting the girl with a rifle, using the launcher's skill, barbecue. This was enough to disarm the girl, leaving her with a minimum amount of health, but he was in no hurry to kill her. Sitting on the ground, Mingla was suddenly hit on the head with a rock, which caused one of her health to be removed. She turned her attention to the guy who summoned the goblin, who in turn threw stones at the girl. The stunned viewers asked how many skills this guy had, and everyone immediately wanted to create a character without specialization. When it became clear that this fight was over, Sunny slowly pulled off his headphones, deciding to rest for a bit. Turning to Tina, the guy suggested that they end it there, since in fact, she had no idea how to play. But he noticed that she had high speed, however. Her right and left hand coordination was just terrible, and her knowledge of skills and equipment was poor. She has very little real experience and her tactics are too predictable. Her ability to anticipate and adapt is almost zero. So if she wants to defeat him with such skills, let him come in 100 years. These words caught the girl's attention. Shawnee yelled that he was going too far because Tina wasn't that bad. The guy apologized, saying that 100 years was just an exaggeration. The owner asked herself if this guy could have been a little softer and said such things in front of so many people. Looking at her friend, Shawnee decided that she was about to explode. With her character, she definitely wouldn't tolerate this. Without letting go of the mouse, Tina calmly suggested to the guy that they finish the game, since one round was not an indicator. Rubbing his head, Sunny replied that he didn't see the point. She had already lost, and he simply felt sorry for her. Don't try to finish her off. Later, while she was distracted by the goblin, he would attack from the air, using the eagle seal, then the falling sword of light. Then with a heavenly blow, and would finish with a dragon's tooth, a touch of a falling flower and a circular swing that would end it all. After that, she would be dead, since she would not be able to dodge the abilities of the different classes that the guy constantly changed. Tina knew that Sunny was telling the truth, but it wasn't her style to just give up without trying again. The guy added that winning this way would simply be unfair, so he asked her to forget about it. But Tina refused, because a loss is a loss. She doesn't need his pity, and therefore he earned this money honestly. Shawnee shouted loudly for him to take them, thinking that she needed to quickly forget about this, like a bad dream. While the owner was arguing with her subordinate, Tina put a couple more bills on the table, which surprised those present. Looking at Sunny, Tina calmly said that she lost this round, after which she suggested playing another one. Even though she doesn't know how to play, I hope he takes her seriously. But she won't accept losing like she is now. Shawnee decided that it was all Sunny's fault, because it was already the end. And on top of that, he decided to tell her all sorts of things. Tina is very proud and takes everything too seriously. Even if she loses, she still will not accept handouts from her opponent. She asked the guy why he was looking at her like that because she couldn't influence it. Everything happened because of him, so it was up to him to figure it out. Sunny smiled, suggesting that they have another fight. This time a serious one, but it wouldn't be the most enjoyable gaming experience for her. Visitors watched in amazement as their beloved Tina refused to give in, demanding a rematch with a rather strong player. No matter how hard the girl tried, Sunny constantly caught up with her, using different and incredibly fast combos that were difficult to follow. One of the guys said that when Sunny said earlier that he didn't give it his all, he thought he was just joking. Meanwhile, Tina was completely absorbed in the game because before it seemed too easy to her, but now she literally can't do anything. Once again, Lord Grimm defeated her by an incredible margin, without receiving almost any damage. A red sign appeared in front of the girl's face, informing her of her loss, which surprised her quite a bit. She couldn't believe that she had already lost, since she hadn't even touched her opponent, and the guy still seemed to be playing at less than his full strength. Last time she thought she just couldn't keep up with his pace, but now she was completely lost during the fight. Shawnee approached her and suggested that she take a little rest, and after a few seconds of thought, she asked to play again. After a while, Shawnee thought that Tina was losing again and again. She had no chance. The first round was just a joke compared to the rest. This time, Sunny is focused, cautious, and merciless, not giving his opponent a second to breathe. She thought he was just showing off, but the difference between professionals and ordinary people is so big. She was too hasty. Shawnee wanted Sunny to awaken interest in the game in Tina, but this was clearly too much. Seeing the pile of money, the audience asked how much she had already lost and whether the guy was ashamed to treat the girl like that. Some also noticed that it was time for her to stop, but she again reached into her purse, demanding revenge, when suddenly she froze in place. Noticing this, Sunny smirked and asked if she had run out of money, to which the girl decided not to answer him. Jumping up from her chair, she asked to wait and go withdraw more money, but Shawnee demanded to stop for today. Glaring angrily at the guy, the owner mentally asked him to say something nice and not to provoke her under any circumstances. Sunny also asked her to stop. No matter what, she won't be able to defeat him today, and persistence won't help her. She uses different skills very quickly, but glory cannot be won by speed alone, but she will still have many chances to fight him. He asked her to study the game and only then come to him, because she should already understand how big the difference is between them. The audience watched in shock as the smiling guy convinced his opponent to back down using facts and logic. An angry and scared Shawnee thought that this was not good, because Sunny had just added fuel to the fire. Suddenly, Tina replied that it was reasonable, after which she asked not to leave the money lying there, but to take it. The guy replied that he would not hold back then, offering to play some other time. Tina immediately agreed. Shawnee asked him sternly if he was serious about just taking the money, even though she didn't want to complicate the situation. But now she was filled with anger. Tina asked why he should be ashamed, because it was a real competition. She bet money and lost. The owner noticed that they thought so alike that she would only upset them if she continued. Tina said that sooner or later she would return the money. Sunny agreed. Let's say that it would be much more difficult than she thought. At the end of the conversation, Sunny got up from his chair and decided to walk around, waving his hand to those present along the way, temporarily saying goodbye. Tina asked Shawnee how big she thought the difference was between them, but Shawnee didn't even know what to answer, and both were much better than her. The brunette added that he was right. She had a lot to learn, then asked how long it would take to catch up with him. Shawnee looked at her friend in shock for a few seconds, not believing that Sunny had actually managed to interest her, after which she realized how well everything had worked out, and said that if she wanted to improve her gaming skills so much, then she couldn't help her. All she can do is find her a new account card so she can create her own character. Over time, Tina began to carefully study the different character classes, starting with the swordsman, who was distinguished by high damage. Then she looked at the shooter, who had increased control complexity. Well, he was also strong in his own way. Tina looked at the characteristics for some time, after which she could not stand it any longer and asked which class she should choose. Shawnee replied that she didn't need to choose it right now. Until she reached level 20, she could learn skills from all classes. The girl clarified that if she did not change class, then her character would be unspecialized, like Sunny's, and her friend agreed. Unspecialized is a playstyle, not a class. If the player does not change class, he will be able to use skills of all specializations. But when the character reaches level 50, he receives a quest to awaken the class. In order to level up further, it is necessary to complete it. Because they don't have a class, they don't receive the awakening quest, so classless characters can't break the level 50 cap. That's why all the non-specialized characters disappeared. Theoretically, there are options to get around this limitation, but it's difficult. Thinking back to Sunny's weapon, Shawnee thought that it was the reason why he was playing a non-specialized character. She said that it was not worth studying with Sunny, and they couldn't. So Tina decided to look at other classes. The girl remembered that her friend had talked about some person or god, after which she asked what grade he was in. The cafe owner replied that his class was a battle mage, but the one who played it retired, and this upset her. Looking at her friend, Tina thought that she had known her for a long time and often saw how she lost her temper for no reason. But for the first time he sees her so gloomy. Apparently, she greatly admires this god of war, and he meant a lot to her. She decided to cheer her friend up by smiling and asking if she thought about choosing a battle mage. Because who knows, maybe one day she will become the next god of war, who will be admired by many people. Shawnee happily shouted that it would be 1,000 times better than defeating Sunny, and she should strive to become the god of war. Sunny approached them and asked if she wanted to play as a battle mage. Since he could teach her, Shawnee asked if he had been eavesdropping on them. He replied that she spoke so loudly that the entire cafe could hear them. The owner replied that she did not need his help. After all, she has a secret weapon, thanks to which Tina will be able to independently obtain all the necessary information. The girl opened the folder, showing that she had all the combat Mogu guides written by Sunny, attributes, skills, equipment, and combat tactics. The guy was surprised that she would rather study alone than with a living person, but she doubted that his training would be better than guides. Sunny smiled and said that these guides were written 9 years ago. Since then, many updates have been released and a lot has changed. Arguing that all these guides were long out of date, the guy began to move the files to the trash, but Shawnee tried to stop him. He added that if someone helped him update these guides and he found out about it, Sunny would be happy, but he needs some time. While he is busy with the update, the girls will have time to create a new account and customize the character. After a while, Tina asked the guy if he was the Dark Lord, but he didn't answer, but only looked questioningly at the monitor. The girl looked at the leaderboard of first kills instead of leveling up her character. Tina replied that there were too many people there, so she decided to do it later and asked if it was possible to replace the first murders. Sunny explained that there is only one chance to get the first kill, but that is not it. One person can still do it. It requires a team. Everyone must play harmoniously and everyone must know their duties perfectly, depending on the character's class. Looking at the girl, the guy mentally asked her if she was coming up with a plan to beat his record, but that was still a long way off. He then said that if she had any questions about the guide or the game, she could ask him, and she immediately thanked him. Sunny asked why her speed was so high, to which he received the answer that it had always been like this. But as it turned out, it was not that important. A slightly upset Shawnee sat in the manager's seat. thinking about everything that had happened in the last 2 hours. She looked up and noticed Tina and Sunny chatting carefree, even though it was so late and they were still playing. Their two managers are playing games while she, the owner, sits at the reception desk, and she feels like something is wrong here. However, Sunny does teach Tina. She rarely sees him so energetic. Usually he looks like he's about to die. And her friend finally became interested in Glory. In the end, a duel between them turned out to be a good idea. Although everything did not go as she expected, the most important thing is the result. Tina is very talented and persistent. Maybe she can become a professional. She also loves Glory, but unfortunately, she is not as good as Sunny. And she does not have Tina's talent, and there is no chance either. Suddenly, she jumped up from her chair, deciding to stop being sad. Even though her fingers weren't that fast, she couldn't be that pessimistic. She has a damn internet cafe. Maybe one day she can create her own professional team. A visitor approached her and asked to extend the session, but she screamed at him to ask the manager to help with this. She loudly called Sunny to her, but he and Tina did not react to their owner in any way, thinking that her mood was very fickle today. After some time, Sunny, along with other players, decided to level up in the burial ground. Other players knew that it was not worth going there. Here, either crazy or skilled people level up because the monsters are too strong, even though they give more experience. But it is difficult to defeat them. The guy who was attacked by the zombie screamed loudly that he was out of potion, when suddenly Lord Grimm appeared out of nowhere. He helped a stranger escape death, and he immediately realized that this guy was strong when he suddenly noticed that he was only level 21. They wanted to add him as a friend when suddenly a familiar voice called out to Lord. Sunny decided to interrupt the destruction of mobs. He noticed a familiar group, led by Azure Stream, who asked him if he wanted to join their team. After these words, the guy immediately received an invitation to join the group. But Sunny was in no hurry to accept the application, looking at it for a few seconds. The swinging guys immediately recognized the Blue Stream Guild. If they wanted to invite him to the team, then they didn't have a chance. Bluebrook is one of the 3 strongest guilds in Glory. Azure Stream is the guild leader. His invitation has never been rejected. However, this case was an exception. The Lord refused the invitation, saying that he could level up himself, which upset Simon. He regretted his decision even before he sent the invitation. There were so many people gathered here, and he couldn't be more gentle. Then Patak said that he was misunderstood. They were not here to level up. He wanted to lure Sunny to him with this intrigue. There was a silence for a few seconds, during which the Lord reasoned as to why they wanted to call him. Then he stated that they wouldn't need so many people to grind experience. They also recently cleared the burial dungeon. Therefore, their guild was here because of the wild boss, Bloody Shooter Yag. He was sure that they decided to ask him for help. Potok replied that, as expected, he understood everything immediately, after which he asked again if he wanted to join them. Simon thought that this time he wouldn't refuse. The Dark Lord definitely wouldn't pass up the opportunity to get material from the wild boss. Even someone like him can't defeat the wild boss alone, and he will need a good team one way or another. A wild boss is a boss that is not located in a dungeon, but in the leveling area itself and appears 3 times a week. These occur at different times and in random locations, but unlike dungeon bosses and hidden bosses, wild bosses are available to all players. Because of this, battles with wild bosses often turn into massive guild fights. The boss itself is not so important. Teams of randoms and individuals do not have a chance. Smiling, the Lord decided to agree, asking where he would appear, after which he invited everyone to come and see. Azure Stream had a lot of thoughts and questions in his head about why he wasn't going to join the team, and whether he should be invited again. He then decided that he was planning to take the boss alone, but he couldn't guess at all what the Lord was thinking. But he didn't want to seem rude, so he agreed to Sunny's proposal and then called him to follow him. After some time, they reached a rocky area where a yellow lightning bolt struck the ground not far from them, creating an explosion. Following this, Bloody Gunner Yag appeared, the feral boss of the burial ground, an undead with a pair of revolvers that moves at crazy speed. Potok said that they received the news 5 minutes ago, so he called all his friends who were in the area. Their reinforcements will also be arriving soon. The intelligence gathering is quite good, and it looks like their guild is the first to arrive on the scene today. Suddenly, the leader of the Grass Garden Guild, Plantain Seed, announced that Azure Stream was a little late. He noticed that he had brought a lot of people with him, and then offered to help each other to deal with the people from Tyrant's Ambition. And after that, they would fight the boss and see who would win. But Simon was only thinking that Tyrant's Ambition would be here too. The leader of the Tyrant's Ambition Guild, Cold Knight, stated that they were the last ones to arrive here, and therefore it was better for them to return home. There were currently 3 top guilds and a lot of people in the vast area. Patak replied that they were just here to watch the show. Each decided to let their opponents go ahead, but only so that they could weaken themselves and the boss, and then finish them off. However, no one dared to take the first step, either towards the boss or towards the other guild, trying to resolve everything with persuasion. Suddenly, the healer from Blue Stream asked Azure Stream to temporarily postpone negotiations and take a look at the boss. Turning their heads, everyone saw that the boss fight had already begun and was in full swing. 4 people from all sides went on the attack. One of the guys asked what was wrong with this game and if this boss was too strong, but he kept trying to damage him. Everyone was mentally asking him if he was sure that the problem was in the game and not in him, since he was trying to kill a wild boss with a team of randoms. But after several unsuccessful attempts, they decided to retreat. One of the players asked Steamed Bun to give up, because they could not win. The guy who played for the hooligan continued to smile, but staying was not an option, although his comrades insisted on it. But he quickly changed his mind, because so many people were watching them, which made him feel very ashamed. But he continued to laugh. The stream said that only 2 minutes had passed, and they had already scattered like flies. In other words, the random teams didn't have a chance. After that, he turned around to address Lord Grimm, and was surprised to see that he had suddenly disappeared. Meanwhile, Sunny attacked Bloody Shooter, thereby saving the fleeing guy, who did not expect that someone would come to his aid. Smiling, Lord asked which of them was the leader, after which he asked to be added to the team. The guys were surprised by this arrangement. Looking at them, Stream sat down and drooped, while Grain told him that it was he who brought him here, while Cold Knight saw the boy for the first time. Simon told himself that the Lord chose a team of noobs he didn't even know instead of joining him. Bun smiled and thanked the guy for his help, because this boss was quite strong, and therefore they had to be careful. However, Sunny didn't listen to him anymore, using the touch of a falling flower on the boss to disorient him. It didn't do any damage to him, because everything was done to interrupt the endless attack animation. While the boss stood motionless in place, the Lord rushed past, simultaneously turning his umbrella into a spear to continue attacking. Running behind Yagu, Sunny used a spiral path, spinning his spear and dealing multiple blows to the boss. And then he pushed the shooter towards the rocks, thereby knocking him down in order to buy himself a little time. Zerno praised the guy's skills, saying that he was able to push back the boss single-handedly, something that would be very difficult to do even for an amateur. Another guy said that Lord Grimm was very famous. His name was on many records. Then he offered to join the battle. The guild leader replied that he might be experienced, but it was useless, because Glory was not a game that could be played alone. He won't be able to push Yag back for long because all skills have a cooldown, and there's always an order, and it happens more or less the same way. The player can use a certain ability once, after which it goes on cooldown for some time. This is called the perfect skill cycle, but in practice you have to dodge a lot, and the boss may have resistance to skills. This is especially true for wild bosses like Yag. He was created and balanced with the idea that he would fight dozens of players. At the same time, the boss closed the distance between him and the Lord in one jump, pointing 2 revolvers at him. He stood up and aimed, but Sunny looked at the enemy silently, in no hurry to run away or dodge. Zerno said that if the boss recovered even a second earlier, it meant that the opportunity to damage him with impunity was lost. And so the guild leader concluded that this guy was a dead man. But in addition to the Lord, the shooter managed to injure other people. At that very moment, Zerno was hit, while his assistant began to urgently call for the cleric to help him. But Zerno noticed that Lord used a normal attack to knock away Bloody Shooter's hand. He didn't understand how that was possible. Noticing the same thing, Patak mentally praised the guy, while his ally asked if they should join in. But the leader suggested waiting a little longer, because the other guilds had not yet moved, because they thought that the Lord would not be able to win. However, he himself does not believe it, although he saw how strong he is, but his level is too low, and the boss has a lot of health. And their real opponents are the Herbal Garden and the Tyrant's Ambition. If they join the fight, they will be at a disadvantage. One of the guys noticed that the guy who joined them was Lord Grimm, a legend of Server 10. He's the one who was able to get the first 3 kills while still in the starting village. Almost everyone knows who he is. While Sunny's allies were engrossed in conversation, he was able to land another blow on the boss, knocking him down again. Seeing the stunned faces of the other people, the guy smiled and asked how long they would just watch, after which he invited them to join in. Sunny's small team asked how they should fight him since he was rising again. The boy asked them to listen to his commands. After dealing a surprise blow to the boss, the Lord asked the Berserker to quickly use Bloodcross while Yag was stunned. His ally did as he was ordered, and now it became much easier to hit him since the enemy was paralyzed. The Lord then asked the mage to cast a fiery flame. The girl immediately complied, creating a stream of fire. The shooter was engulfed in flames, during which he could not see anyone around him, and so Sunny decided to take advantage of this. Using his spear, he delivered a heavenly strike to Yag, which lifted him into the air, preventing the boss from counterattacking. The allies were delighted that he pulled off such a combo so easily. Before that, they didn't even have a chance to deal damage. And the bully happily asked what he should do, to which he received the answer that, after the boss gets up, he should use a sand throw. The guy took this order very seriously, approaching the boss and throwing a handful of sand at him, asking him to taste it. From the outside, it looked extremely ridiculous, since Yag did not react in any way to the ability sent at him. He only stained the boss's clothes, and it was obvious that he was angry. The surprised guy could not understand what he did wrong. The shooter immediately started shooting at him with revolvers, and he quickly ran away and asked why his skill didn't work. Sunny replied that he had to throw sand in his face or he would go blind. Now he needed to use a brick strike, but he had to attack from behind. Bun accepted the new instruction, immediately turning around, changing the trajectory of his movements, and simultaneously grabbing a brick lying on the ground. Dodging the bullets, the guy asked again that he just needed to get behind him, adding that it was easy. The guy brandished a brick and pompously announced to his boss that he had received a package, after which he threw it with all his might. The brick flew straight into Yag's neck, but it was not noticeable that the skill worked. He only frowned, frozen in place. His team silently watched from the sidelines as what was happening, realizing that now Bun would have to run away again. He shouted that nothing had happened anyway, but they told him that he should break the brick on his head himself, but not throw it. The Bluebrook healer noticed that this bully moves very quickly and dodges all of the boss's attacks, despite making stupid mistakes. Potok said that it wasn't that weird. Most likely she had tried many games in the past, but never played Glory. However, the leader noted that thanks to Lord Grimm, even these newcomers were putting up a worthy fight, although they had just been on the verge of collapse. Zerno and his assistant looked at the ongoing battle with displeasure, as these newcomers, together with the Lord, began to inflict damage on the boss. At that very moment, Potok ordered everyone to take up position. The other guilds weren't going to wait long. They needed to deal with everyone except the Lord. If someone attacks him, you need to intervene and help. Since he is a friend of the guild, they should not let him down. As soon as the guild leader gave the order to attack, all of his subordinates immediately rushed forward with shouts and weapons in their hands. Seeing a huge crowd heading in the direction, Bun asked with delight if these people had really decided to help them. Sunny replied in the negative, explaining that they were trying to steal the boss's kill and they were their target. The guy's delight immediately vanished, after which he replied that it was very insidious. They decided to enter into battle when everything had just gotten better. However, they did not want to run away, to which the Lord said that it would soon become very dangerous here, so they needed to retreat for now. In the short time they had known each other, the boys decided to trust the Lord completely, and so they immediately agreed with his order and began to retreat. While running, Bun asked if he was going to fight them alone, offering to stay with him. Sunny stated that there was no need for that, and that he needed to continue running. The newbie didn't fully understand the point of his plan, but since he is now fighting alone, he can increase his speed a little. This will help him in the battle with the boss. He began to use various skills, continuing to deal damage to the boss, not giving him the opportunity to counterattack. The dumbfounded stream appreciated the Lord's incredible speed, but it would do no good. The boss still had more than half his health. While Sunny was beating the boss with a spear, Zerno didn't understand what was happening. His allies had fled, and he was pretending that they didn't exist. While he was amazed at his speed, his assistant asked if they should chase after them or focus on stealing the boss. The leader raised his right hand and loudly ordered them to stand and wait for his command. Because now the newcomers were no obstacle for them at all. For now they couldn't move. Let them run. They could be forgotten. If they were too hot-tempered, it could turn into a collapse. If they start chasing them, forgetting about the other guilds, and enter the battle first, then someone will definitely stab them in the back. Suddenly, Grain asked the Lord if he would like to join them, offering to let him take the entire reward. Cold Night followed suit, also offering Sunny the chance to join them, adding 20 white wolf bristles as a reward. The stream decided that the Lord had predicted that the top 3 guilds would fight and offer high prices to recruit him. Meanwhile, the fleeing newbies heard the proposals from the guild leaders, finding them incredibly good, after which they asked the captain to stop running away because they were trying to recruit them. If they join the group, they will be given all the loot. They decided to go back and see, The captain was glad that they were not here to kill them. As if reading their minds, a message came into the team chat from Lord Grimm, urging his allies to keep running. 3 of them, including the captain, immediately ran away, while the latter asked if they really didn't need the things that were being offered to them. Without slowing down, Bun ordered him not to do this and to listen to Lord Grimm, because he knew exactly what he was doing. At this time, Gray noticed that the Lord was not even going to pay attention to them, to which Knight replied that then they would do something bad. Meanwhile, Sunny continued to fight the shooter and deal damage to him, not allowing him to recover from the attacks. Another blow from the spear threw the boss towards the fence. The rusty bars could not withstand such a load, breaking with a crack. For some time, Yag did not rise. He was under the effect of stunning, because of which he could not quickly return to the battle. During that momentary pause, Sunny waved his hand at his face, sighing heavily, and then asked the boys to be careful. The guild leaders did not understand the meaning of his warning, trying to carefully and quickly assess the situation. Then they noticed that Bloody Shooter had suddenly gone quiet, and everyone present immediately rushed towards the boss. At that very second, a golden beam burst out of his body and shot straight into the sky, destroying the ground nearby. Yag screamed loudly. It was obvious that he was enraged, but now he was not affected by any negative effects. On top of that, he used the Death Legion summoning skill, causing zombies to rise from the ground. The top 3 guilds immediately tensed up, realizing that the shooter had become enraged, and therefore it would be even more difficult to fight him. In addition, players began to be attacked by zombies, who tried to prevent people from reaching their summoner. This was not a favorable outcome for the guilds, but they had no choice but to try to fight off the high-level zombies. The healer was pleased that other guilds were in the same situation, but Patak was interested in why Yag had suddenly become enraged. The summoned monsters are quite high level. It will be difficult for them to deal with them. But on top of that, the boss's health is not red yet. Simon suddenly realized what had caused such a change, and then asked himself how he could have made such a stupid mistake. Besides dropping your health to the required level, there is another condition that triggers rage, and that is getting too big of a combo. To prevent players from abusing the boss too much, when the combo reaches 200, the boss will try to save itself. That's why Lord Grimm stayed. He wanted to finish the combo to 200. He dared to do something like that while 3 of the strongest guilds were watching him. Zerno stated that if it weren't for the fact that he had to watch the 2 of them, he definitely wouldn't have missed such an important detail as the combo. Cold Knight advised him to just accept it. No one would have thought that a team of random players could do something like that. One of the players asked the leader to look towards the boss. The Lord leaves the shooter, because the provocation is still on him. They greatly underestimated the Dark Lord. He was able to deceive 3 guilds at once. Everyone simultaneously thought that it was awkward. However, they had no time to distract themselves with conversations, as a horde of zombies attacked them, not giving them a chance to rest. It was painful for Patak to remember their run into the dungeon then. At least he hadn't lied to them. But now the situation was completely different. He started shouting at the other leaders not to disrupt the formation, but they told him to shut up because they could cope without him. He replied that they had no choice but to work together. They must combine the power of the 3 guilds and defeat the Legion of Death. Not far from the battle site, Bun, I said that it had become quite dangerous there. It was good that they listened to the Lord and ran away, and the guy who returned to them was killed. Suddenly they did not notice that Sunny was running very quickly in their direction. Without slowing down, he rushed past them, calling for them to come with him. I said that we need to find a deserted place and kill the boss. The allies immediately asked where the boss came from, and both of them simultaneously fell silent, realizing that he was now behind them. Seeing the shooter's angry face, the newcomers shouted loudly, adding that he really did bring Yaga here. They immediately started running away, asking where they could hide, but Lord Grimm did not answer them. At this time, Grain shouted that the Lord was too cunning, to which Stream replied that he himself was to blame for his stupidity. They stood between themselves, after which they decided to listen to Cold Knight's opinion, but he was in no hurry to answer. He wrote to Sunny that no matter how far he ran, they would still find him, because he had no idea who he was dealing with. Lord advised him to hurry. Such a simple-minded answer only angered the guild leader, who began to chop down zombies left and right, not saying that he was already following him. Grain and Stream looked at the 3rd leader in surprise, wondering why he had suddenly become so furious. They decided that he was whispering with Lord Grimm, who at that time ran far enough away, finding an empty and open place. Bun noticed with fear that another group of people was moving towards them. He decided that they were also trying to steal the boss. Seeing them, Sunny smiled and asked his ally not to worry and add them to the team, who surprisingly agreed. Sleeping Moon happily stated that they weren't late. The rest of the team just greeted Lord Grimm. The group leader was delighted to realize that Sunny had called these guys after thinking several steps ahead. The Lord immediately asked if they were afraid of getting into trouble for coming here, but they replied that as long as he was here, even the three strongest guilds would not scare them. They added that he was a good brother who remembered them when he was fighting the boss, so they couldn't help but come. Noticing that the boss had already caught up with them, Lord suggested that they deal with him quickly, since they didn't have much time. They were not in the most advantageous position now, as their time to win was limited by the arrival of other guilds. They surrounded the shooter and began to use their strongest skills to inflict as much damage as possible on him. Suddenly, Cold Knight texted Sunny that they were already done with the Legion, so all he had to do was wait for them. The Lord stated that they would have to speed up. Other guilds would be coming here soon. They needed to concentrate and increase their speed. Rushing forward and attacking the boss with a spear, the hero asked his allies to keep up to finish everything as quickly as possible. Tyler asked that they weren't fast enough earlier because he had already reached his limit, so he would have to try harder. The newcomers said that it was quite difficult for them to keep up with them. The wizard added that he almost missed with his attack. Sunny knew they were just regular players. He was asking too much of them. Hitting faster was easy, but doing it without making mistakes was a different matter. After all, the accuracy of their movement will suffer greatly among all of them. Only Bun received incredible pleasure and declares that it is fun. This time he successfully used Sand Throw and Brick Strike, and he did it very quickly. Lord noticed that this guy was very good. When the party leader stunned the boss, it became easier for his allies to hit him and deal damage, causing his health bar to almost turn red. Suddenly, everyone stopped when someone behind them announced that they had been found. Moon turned his head, frozen in surprise, and an incredible crowd of people was slowly approaching them, who were clearly not in a friendly mood, which made the whole group tense. Cold Knight was the first to step forward, addressing Lord Grimm, threateningly declaring that the time of reckoning had come. He admitted he had beaten them, but he was willing to bet he had no more aces up his sleeve. Sunny thought they had found them faster than he had planned. Bun asked what they would do next, since they wouldn't be able to stand against so many people and still finish off the boss. Cold Knight shouted that the boss had very little health left. They should split into two groups, one for the boss and the other for the Grim Lord. A huge number of players immediately rushed into battle. Dividing into groups, they began to attack, filled with confidence in victory. The small group was shocked to see that they had never had so many people running after them before, and they even found it a little funny. The Moon looked at the Lord in fear, asking what they should do now, but froze when he saw what their leader was doing. He continued to fight the boss, although they had very little time left and they urgently needed to retreat. At this point, Grain and Stream joined the fight, asking how things were going, to which Cold Knight suggested that they see for themselves. They noticed that his men had already rushed to attack, and he replied that this was too good a chance, and therefore he did not dare wait for the others. He tried to trick them, but ended up digging his own hole, wanted to hide and eat everything alone, but it presented him with a boss with low health. First, they get rid of him. The boss will remain for last, after which he apologized to Patak, saying that their guild will get the first kill. But Grain interrupted the happy thoughts of the head of Tyrant's ambitions, because he himself said a couple of seconds ago that the bloody shooter had little health left. By deliberately continuing to fight the boss, the Lord ensured that his health dropped below 5%. At that very moment, Sunny achieved his goal, deciding to temporarily interrupt the attacks, because now a grand show was about to begin. Yag, with a smile on his face, began to shoot in all directions with revolvers, using the random fire skill, which caught up with a random player. Knight remembered that when the shooter's health reaches a critical point, he starts shooting in all directions. He was too angry and did not notice this. Having hidden in advance, Bun's group was delighted with the perfect skill for dealing with the crowd. The entire guild is in the kill zone. It's no wonder that the Lord told them to take cover, but now that he's dead too, even though they've come this far, they still won't be able to kill the boss. Sitting next to them, Sleeping Moon refuted their words, saying that dying with his enemies was not his style. They then noticed Sunny, turning his umbrella into a sword, attack the boss from behind, deciding to end this battle with one blow. The blade crunched into the shooter's body, interrupting his endless attack, thereby saving many players from death. The newbies were happy that he survived, realizing that it was his clone that was killed back then. This was done to confuse the guild. The three leaders looked at the system notification in shock, which stated that the first kill of a bloody gunner had been made. Once it was all over, Sunny tiredly took off his headphones, sighing heavily, but in his heart rejoicing in the victory. He didn't notice that there were people next to him asking why he managed to play the boss from under the noses of the three best guilds. He hoped that none of those people were in this cafe, because they were probably very angry right now, while Knight said that this was not the end yet. He acknowledged the Lord's skills, but none of them would leave here alive, since they had managed to deceive the three best guilds. Maintaining a calm yet serious appearance, Lord Grimm merely chuckled and offered the leaders something to discuss. Sunny sternly suggested that they retreat, otherwise he would stop being so lenient, and then they would know his full power. All the players in front of him were shocked when they heard such words from a single player who was going to confront three guilds. Knight panicked as he wondered if he was bluffing. There were many more of them, but he still decided that he could defeat them all. At that very moment, he noticed a strange aura emanating from him. Perhaps the Lord had something else in reserve. Knight ordered his men to leave, and when asked if they would fight, he repeated the order in a low voice. Turning around, the huge crowd of people began to leave the burial ground, while Sunny continued to watch them. The newcomers sighed calmly, thinking that they were about to get a serious beating, but they wanted to see how the Lord would deal with them. Sunny just smiled and looked at the guy, while thinking that he had less than half his health and 0 mana left. After that, they decided to take a look at the loot. Once again offering the Lord to choose first, he decided to take only the bloody rifle. Shani smiled contentedly, calling the guy a villain since he had no mana left at all, so it was the lie of the century. The visitor said that he had greatly angered Tyrant Ambition by asking if this would come back to haunt him in the future. They certainly would not forget about it. Then they noticed that Cold Knight had written to him. The curly-haired guy noticed that they had already started threatening him, when the guild leader suddenly offered him to kill the wild boss of the ice forest together on his own terms. The visitor was stunned by such an offer. When Knight read Sunny's terms, he was shocked by such huge demands, concluding that his impudence knew no bounds. At this moment, the guild leader hated the Lord more than anyone in the entire world. However, for the sake of the first kill, he endured and agreed. On Sunny's third day working at the internet cafe, he was asked to rent a computer, to which he asked to wait since he was new there. The visitor was surprised to see that the manager was playing games, and Sunny was thinking that with the bloody rifle he could improve his umbrella. First, he will upgrade the sword form and rifle form to level 15. Provided that the weight remains the same, physical and magical damage will be increased. However, the probe itself has not yet reached level 15. Fortunately, it is a silver weapon, otherwise it would already be obsolete. Meanwhile, Azure Stream offered him to go to the dungeon together. The guy thought that he was very persistent. He replied that he already had people he would go with. Simon became interested in who could invite him faster than him. The Lord replied that he would go with Tyrant's Ambition. Simon could not have expected such an answer because he himself wanted to cooperate with the Lord. He shouted that he had recently stolen his boss from him, and now he wanted to cooperate with them, adding that Cold Knight had no shame. Suddenly, the boy froze in place, realizing what Lord Grimm was really trying to achieve by constantly changing allies. It looked like he wanted to take a piece from every guild on server 10, thereby gaining a huge advantage for himself. Sunny didn't notice Tina approaching him with a thermos in her hands, asking what he was doing. He replied that he was looking through the skills. The girl stared at the monitor, saying that she was just thinking about what skills she should learn. While sipping her tea, she mentally noted that the guy was already at level 21, which meant that she needed to try hard to catch up with him. He suggested that she level up her Heavenly Strike and Dragon Fang, and level them up just enough to complement her fighting style as much as possible. She thought that she was only on level 6. She was 15 levels behind him. She needed to hurry and catch up with him. She then walked out of the reception desk, confidently heading into the hall while Sunny watched her go. Tina took the free seat, confidently deciding that she should devote all the next time to leveling up her character. Looking at her, Sunny thought that she came in the morning, fought with him during the day, and decided that he would play the battle mage in the evening. And now, in the middle of the night, she was going to level up. This inspired respect for a person who doesn't give up. He also noticed that she liked to drink tea, which almost made him mistake her for one of his old acquaintances. At this time, at the magnificent Era base, the manager asked Marie to rest. Because the tournament was tomorrow, she should be as fit as a fiddle. Having agreed, the girl silently continued drinking tea, mentally wondering what Sunny was doing now. Meanwhile, Cold Knight hurried the guy, saying that he brought the people he asked for, attack classes, at least level 20. After inspecting his new allies, Lord Grimm began to confidently give orders, describing tactics for defeating the goblin merchant. The magical girl ordered her group to do whatever Lord Grimm said, and the three boys immediately agreed. After a while, hiding behind a tree, The girl announced that they were in position and saw a target that was unaware of their presence. The wild boss, the goblin merchant Lorraine, walked calmly forward carrying a huge backpack filled with various things. Sunny stated that he would take on the tank role, but they would have to reassign that role when he said so. After that, they will need to take the boss away. At that very second, he decided to attack the goblin, but immediately put out an umbrella, defending himself from the attack. The boy noticed that he was being attacked by Azure Stream, who was sure that he was not expecting him, and therefore decided to attack suddenly. Simon explained that wild bosses exist to be fought for, and that's what they'll be doing now. Sunny smiled and agreed with this statement, simultaneously changing the shape of the umbrella, accepting the flow's challenge. After all, it looks like he had a good opportunity to test a new weapon, into which he invested quite a lot of rare materials. Simon noticed that he was again with this strange spear or sword. He had never seen anything like it. At this time, Sunny announced to his team that they were getting ready to become tanks. They immediately accepted the order and began to attack the boss. After apologizing to Patak, the shooter ran away, simultaneously provoking the boss to run after him, and Simon asked where this guy even came from. He didn't understand why they were hiding and becoming tanks to take the boss somewhere. In his eyes, it was a very strange strategy. After that, he took off his headphones and thought with surprise that now it was Tyrant's ambition, and next time, it might be Herbal Garden. Meanwhile, the leader of the Magnificent Dynasty Guild, Chuck, said that they were working hard to get a new record. He explained that a guy named Lord Dark had appeared and that he was strong, but his interlocutor decided that he wanted to ask him to set a couple of records. He asked them not to worry about being discovered. After all, Sunny had already left, so no one would care. After some time, a system notification congratulated Tyrant's ambition on getting their first kill on a goblin merchant. Cold Knight noticed that the Lord had left the team before the boss died, so their guild received all the glory. In response to this, Sunny said that it would be nice if they threw in a couple more white wolf bristles on top, along with the agreed payment. He offered to give him another 25 bristles. Hearing this number, the guild leader fell into a stupor, stunned by the guy's impudence. Knight was too stunned by how shameless he was, but when asked what was wrong, he replied that everything was fine, after which he asked his subordinate to bring them to him. Since they should have had a few left in the warehouse, she quickly wrote him the command in the chat. And then the leader found out that they were all gone. The girl clarified that they also needed to get the 20 that he had originally asked for. Knight asked how urgently he needed the bristles, because the best members of their guild had already reached level 25, so they wanted to go through the icy forest again. They're going to break that record in the next couple of days. If it helps them break that record, they won't get all the compensation done at once. In this way, he hoped to delay the delivery of the promised. The hero agreed, deciding to clarify something about the compensation. The irritated leader clarified that he could ask for anything, in response to which the guy did not hold back. So he decided to also ask for 30 white wolf hairs, 2 mithril pendants, and 1 crystal staff. This staff is a level 25 orange weapon, so it will be difficult to obtain, but if they don't have it yet, they can use something else as collateral. Trying to restrain himself, the guild leader thought that he would have to put pressure on the entire guild to get these items. He tried to understand who was working for whom here. It was as if they themselves had become his personal slaves, and it was unclear how this happened. Pleased with the trade, the Lord asked what was wrong, in response to which, Knight, trying to hold back her trembling and tears, again answered that everything was fine. He would endure everything in order to obtain records for the guild, after which he asked what kind of players he needed for the record. The Grim Lord replied that he needed 4 level 25 players with high damage. Pointing to the Knights group, he said that these would do. Once they enter, they should listen to him and just try to deal as much damage as possible, because they are going to pass in one wave. The sorceress girl asked with interest what kind of one-wave passage this was, but the leader told her to just do what the Lord said. Before they could even enter the icy forest, the group of players had already encountered goblins who were trying to defend themselves unsuccessfully. During this skirmish, they checked that the previous record was 20 minutes and 24 seconds. Then, Lord Grim helped with it. The girl replied that it wouldn't be difficult to beat him, because Lord, you yourself said that they would have time to do everything in 16 minutes. But if his speed is not the highest, he will have to find a way to gather all the monsters in one place. Meanwhile, Cold Knight's right hand was telling the leader that almost 10 minutes had passed since they entered the dungeon. The Bluebrook Guild and the Herbal Garden are also inside the dungeon and are trying to break the record, but this does not surprise the guy. He looked very tense and regretted that he could not personally be present during the passage of this location. Suddenly, a system notification popped up in front of them, saying that the herbal garden had been completed in 17 minutes and 47 seconds. This was 3 minutes faster than Lord Grimm's previous record. They were curious if he could beat it. At that very moment, the sorceress girl informed the leader that they had cleared the first wave of mobs, and he was surprised at their speed. She had never seen such strategies before, but it was true. None of them were stopped by the tank, because the Lord's damage was very high. Cold Knight was delighted, saying that Grass Garden had better end their celebration. In a few minutes, they would break the record. Suddenly, another system notification popped up. The guys decided that this time the Blue Stream Guild had finished the cleanup. Knight looked at the inscription in shock, which said that the players of the Magnificent Dynasty had cleared the dungeon in 13 minutes and 24 seconds. Besides Knight, Sunny and the entire Bluebrook Guild couldn't take their eyes off the notification, trying to comprehend what had happened. Cold Knight asked to quickly check what the fastest record among all servers was. His subordinate immediately went to carry out the order. The Lord said that they also broke the maximum record of the Ice Forest in all of Glory. For many years, no one could surpass the time of 14 minutes. The guy concluded that they were experts, and at least 3 people on their team were at a professional level. Team Era may have been underperforming lately, but they wouldn't stoop so low as to give up training for a new server. Listening to Lord's words, Knight concluded that it was not impossible to break this record, which meant they had every chance. Sunny agreed, specifying that they wait until he reached level 25. They also needed to overcome this mark. He also asked to collect the items he requested: 30 white wolf bristles, 2 mithril pendants, and 1 crystal staff. They had made an agreement, so he asked them not to even think about it, but they didn't believe that he could break the record of the Magnificent Dynasty. But it will be difficult to set a record. Each team member must have excellent skills and understanding of the game. Knight and his assistant pointed at themselves, but the Lord added that he did not need healers or knights. This was a blow to the heart. Even if they need to take account cards to play the required classes, they will have to do it personally. It is easier to forget about the record. Sunny smiled and replied that he could try to find the right people and account cards. Everyone immediately flinched when they heard this. They decided that it was a trap. Lord Grimm in the eyes of others is an old cunning fox. Given his greed, he will definitely ask for an exorbitant price. Knight agreed, but immediately pointed out that they would not be able to give him anything else. He asked not to worry. They would stick to the original compensation. After which, he asked to find out everything about the 5 members of the Magnificent Dynasty, as well as provide some equipment. When asked what classes needed equipment, Sunny replied that they would need a battle mage, hooligan, and launcher. His interlocutors noticed with surprise that he was not actually trying to bargain, and suddenly became so serious. The Lord also asked to wait until he reached level 25. Then he would help them break this record. After this conversation, he decided to add Steamed Bun to his friends, since he was playing as a bully, deciding to find out if he was free. He was startled by a sudden voice that said that someone had broken his record, but he replied that it was not only his record that had been broken. The records of the other 9 servers were also broken. Tina asked if he would try to get it back, and then he nodded affirmatively. The girl with bags under her eyes said that if he gets this record back and she can beat him, it will be even more fun. The guy said that she underestimated this record, after which he asked what level she was at, and she replied that she was already at 16. He asked her to reach level 25. Something fun awaits her there, when suddenly 2 bags landed on their heads and Shani's displeased voice was heard. She said that Tina could not continue to imitate Sunny because she would ruin her health if she continued to play this game all night long. The guy was surprised that the girl also sat there all night, to which Shani asked why they played all night and didn't even talk to each other once. After which she turned to her friend and said that she couldn't compete with someone like him. It wasn't worth it. After Knight asked how he planned to find players, Lord replied that it was something he had yet to figure out. The next evening, he decided to take a little walk and stretch his legs, when a friend overheard someone say that he expected nothing less from Marie. Seeing him, Shani said that he was still new here, so he didn't know this was their internet cafe tradition of broadcasting glory tournaments. They are currently watching the 20th round, Era versus Team 301 Degrees, one-on-one matches going on right now. When she finished explaining everything, she turned back to the monitor and happily addressed Marie, who was her idol. The commentators were saying that Era's fine female player, Marie, had won a point for her team in the one-on-one match. Now the overall score was 2-1. The cafe owner continued to shout that Marie was gorgeous, as expected from her idol. Seeing the disgruntled faces of the visitors and staring at the monitor, Sunny thought that Era had lost 2 out of 3 battles. Next up will be a group match of 3 people, Now, the commentators should have named the first players who will take the field. It was the new captain of Team Excellent Era, Sebastian, and he would be facing off against Team 301 Degrees captain Chris. The visitors immediately shouted that this was the new hope of the Excellent Era, Sunny's successor, and began to wish him luck. When a participant loses, he leaves the field and is replaced by the next one. If all players on one side drop out, the other side wins. Next to the commentator sat their guest commentator for today, Mr. Lucas, a well-known professional player. He said that Sebastian took over as captain after Sunny retired, and this is his first time playing for Autumn Leaf in a tournament. Sunny noticed that Lucas made up a lot of things. The guy was a good friend because he could count on his finger the number of times they talked. Now the first participants have entered the arena. They are circling around each other, trying to feel out their opponent. The commentator asked who had a better chance of winning. Lucas replied that it was a difficult question and that both were very good players. Their chances are about equal. The Autumn Leaf account has more silver equipment than any other account. Overall, he should be stronger than stage killer Chris, but Sebastian has never played a battle mage before. Chris is a veteran player with a lot of experience, so in this match the advantage is on the side of 301 degrees. Suddenly Chris started to advance, deciding to go straight ahead. Stage killer was now in Autumn Leaf's sight. However, Chris did not attack. After all, he was a veteran, and he should not be so rash in hasty decisions. However, this was precisely what Sebastian could take advantage of, and to take this victory, he had to be more impudent. Instead, Sebastian decided to attack. His playstyle is quite aggressive. He starts with a sky strike. As expected, Chris stepped back. Lucas noticed that he couldn't resist calling them youngsters. Meanwhile, after dodging the sky strike, Stage Killer counterattacks with a shining slash, which is very difficult to dodge. The audience simultaneously screamed, because at that very second Sebastian decided to use the Dragon's Tooth instead of dodging. This skill was needed to interrupt the shining cut. In addition, the Dragon's Tooth hit Chris, causing damage to him. Just like the old saying goes, a newborn calf is not afraid of tigers, and Sebastian did not back down in the face of fear. He managed to knock his opponent to the ground, thereby buying himself some time for a new attack. Shawnee noted that Sebastian was very good. Sunny added that the Shining Cut was a very fast attack, and to interrupt her with a Dragon Tooth, his reaction speed is no joke. Tina approached them, noticing the battle mage. Shawnee suggested that she watch, because this guy was playing in her class. At the same second, the screen showed the inscription, Victory, which belonged to Sebastian. The spectators who were in the cafe shouted loudly that the God of War was still alive, after which they began to shout words of encouragement. Young Sebastian starts the group match with a win. Apparently, he has already gotten used to the Autumn Leaf. Then, Team 301 Degree sends the next player. They sent a Swordmaster who slowly approached the Magician. The audience laughed at how much he was afraid of the God of War. Perhaps he now thinks that he was in a nightmare. Sebastian quickly caught up with the cautious opponent, after which he earned another victory, which happened all too quickly. The commentators and spectators were wondering if Sebastian would sweep away the next player and win 1-3. It was the first time the commentators had seen anything like this in a professional league match, and Shawnee said that 301 Degrees were making a mockery of themselves. The laughing commentators noticed that the Knight of the Tide, also known as the King of Exhaustion, came out onto the field next. Everyone thought it would be fun to watch, and Shawnee remarked again that this guy was such a coward for not daring to come out directly. This team may not even think about participating next year. Sebastian will help Era completely take them out. The captain of Era addressed his opponent in the general chat and said that when he plays like that, he feels very uncomfortable. After which he made another combo. Sebastian's speed grows by leaps and bounds, but the Tide continues to run away. The spectators were asking with displeasure why he was only running away and not fighting. At this rate, he would definitely lose. Meanwhile, the entire Era was asking the captain to just finish him off so they could move on to the next team. The guy got tense and wanted to do so in order to finish everything as quickly as possible, but his opponent was too annoying. After a little while, it finally happened. Sebastian had to sweat a lot for the last victory. As expected from the King of Attrition, not only his opponents are exhausted, but the spectators and commentators along with them. Meanwhile, almost the entire Era team praised their captain, but he was unhappy with this result. Then his ally mentally noted that this kid, Sebastian, was indeed a very nasty person. Tina said that this guy was pretty good. The account he used was Autumn Leaf, which Shawnee was talking about. While the girl was explaining to her friend how impressive Sebastian was, she didn't notice how Sunny had disappeared somewhere. She found him in the smoking lounge, asking why he had gone so far away as the team battle was about to begin. She then asked why he looked so worried, telling him not to worry as Era would handle it. Slowly exhaling tobacco smoke, the guy calmly replied that the higher the expectations, the greater the disappointment. The girl was surprised that he was talking about Sebastian losing, since he had just defeated 3 people in a row. Sunny replied that it was not Sebastian who would lose, but the entire era. And at that very moment, to everyone's surprise, the lights went out. Everyone immediately started calling for the manager. Tina asked if they would be able to turn the lights back on before the end of the night. Another person shouted for everyone to run in all directions. Sunny stated that he was in a hurry to reach level 25, and then asked how her cafe could screw up so badly at such a time. Irritated and angry, Shawnee asked who needed his levels anyway, and then asked to call an electrician quickly. 3 hours later, the guy stated that it took too long to fix the switch. Tina noticed that Shawnee had gone to bed. The girl then sent the guy to start his shift, and she would stay here and do the pumping. Sunny noticed that she was focused on this. Tina asked the guy sitting next to her how the match they were watching ended, after which she decided to check the score. She noticed that Team 301 Degree had 7 points while Era had 3, and asked how he knew Era would lose. After all, Sebastian completely swept away his opponents in the group match, to which the guy did not respond that this was part of the 301 Degree strategy. They deliberately lost the group match, causing Sebastian to get nervous and increase his speed. Although the first player they sent was the very fast and accurate Chris, who could not lose so easily. The second player lost very quickly, which served to strengthen Sebastian's arrogance, causing him to relax. The third player, however, played to be as annoying as possible, angering Sebastian and forcing him to increase his speed to the limit. Because of how much emotion was boiling inside Sebastian, he was doomed to conflict with his own team, which did not have enough synergy. He didn't have enough time to create it, so given his situation, it ended in disaster. 301 Degrees has 2 key and strong players. They were the ones who took part in the team battle. This has already become a cause for concern. Tina concluded that Excellent Era lost due to poor teamwork, and Sunny confirmed her words. He also added that Glory was never a game for singles, after which the guy took a drag. The girl noticed how Sunny's face changed when he said the last sentence, but she didn't show it. Meanwhile, the players of the Excellent Era were wandering around the street, trying to stop one of the participants who claimed that he was not drunk. Why did he shout that they lost today because of Sebastian, who didn't have a drop of team spirit, and he also only cared about himself? In addition, he found fault with his attitude. After Sunny left, Sebastian appeared, which caused even more problems. They noticed an internet cafe nearby, deciding to let off some steam and make fun of the newbies on the 10th server. Taking off his headphones, Sunny greeted the guests without raising his head, asking how many seats they would need. But as soon as he noticed them, he immediately stopped short, while the drunk guy noticed Tina, calling her a beauty. The girl replied that this place was not intended for public use. He looked at her computer and asked if she played Glory. The guy immediately smiled and started hitting on her, saying that she wasn't that bad, and she calmly thanked him. He then asked her if she recognized him, while his colleagues tried to attract the guy's attention. He turned away from the conversation with displeasure and asked why they were poking him, to which the frightened player pointed his finger to the side. Turning his head, the tipsy player noticed Sunny, who calmly asked if they needed him. The visitor was stunned for a second. Tensing and freezing in place, the guy immediately recognized his former colleague, not expecting to see him here. Exhaling, he greeted the elder, asking sarcastically if it could be that he worked here as a network manager. He then asked if the job was too difficult and also asked how much he earned. Sunny replied 1,800. The guy asked if it was too little and if it was enough to cover his smoking addiction. He then added that if this was not enough, he could come at any time and ask for help. They are not that far away, he just needs to cross the road and walk a few steps, after which he asked his guys for approval. Tina hesitantly asked Sunny if they were his friends or not, but the visitor replied that she had not chosen the right words. After all, none of them would dare to become friends with dear Sunny. It would be more correct to say that they are just his subordinates. The phrase was said with a smirk and pretense in his voice, but Sunny calmly withstood the verbal attacks. Lee was very familiar with that expression. Sunny was going to count him out again. He pretended to be scared. A colleague whispered that he was in no position to count him out. Then the guy replied, how could he forget? Because he was bigger and their captain. He turned to the elder, deciding to argue that he wanted to tell him a lot of things now, just like he had before. After that, Lee said that he was very sorry. Now he can say whatever he wants, but they are no longer obliged to listen to him. Tina asked if he had drunk too much, but he replied that there was no need to worry. It was a personal matter between him and Sunny. Suddenly, Sunny jumped up and said that he had scolded him so often, but he continued to do everything wrong. If he wanted him to stop, it would be polite to give him a chance to finally stop. Hearing this, the girl chuckled. This answer angered Lee, causing him to slam his palms loudly on the table, unable to contain his indignation. He then replied that it was he who never gave him a chance to fully prove himself. From the very first day he joined the team, he always tried to suppress him and never gave him the opportunity to stand out. But he knows that he did it because he was afraid of him, afraid that if he started to stand out, he would take his place. However, now he is the one who remains on the team, and Sunny is the one who was thrown out, and now he won't be able to suppress him forever. Now Lee is the vice captain, and he is just a pathetic network manager with a salary of $1,800 a month. Having said this, the guy laughed. Sunny then turned to the other team members, asking Lee to step aside, adding that none of them had played well today. First, Victor was too focused on looking flashy, making too many unnecessary movements. This gave the opponents many opportunities which they took advantage of. Their style of play was simple, but very practical. If he can combine his mindset with his smooth mechanics and strong sense of rhythm, he will never lose one-on-one. The guy silently listened to the criticism of the former captain, realizing that he was absolutely right in all aspects. Then he turned to Richard, saying that he was too much of a cautious man. He hesitated, thereby losing the initiative. In professional matches, the delay between a player's reaction time and action is often measured in tenths of a second. The guy's head is not so hopeless because it has enough experience to quickly make the right decisions. The guy with glasses immediately nodded, agreeing with every word Sunny said, while Lee remained silent at first. Then he asked loudly whether he thought the one who remained their captain had any right to lecture them. He then asked Lee that when Sebastian was on a winning streak and seemed invincible, did he notice anything? When he realized the threat posed by his opponents, did he spend any time to come up with a good strategy? He repeated that he had scolded him in the past because he had done everything wrong, and that was why he had not given him the opportunity to stand out. However, now that he has got to where he is, he needs to strive to do his best because being vice captain is a very difficult job. He then put his hand on Lee's shoulder, saying that he wanted to encourage him, and anyway, it was time for them to go back. He didn't understand why they had to leave because they came here to take their places. Why did he ask to unlock 4 computers? Suddenly, a sign appeared in front of the player's face, and Sunny waved it right in front of his nose for him to take a closer look. It said there that these are the rules here. Sunny said that they don't serve people who have had too much to drink. But they are famous people, and if they create a scandal here, nothing good will come of it. Lee immediately stopped short. Then they turned around and headed for the exit. Not wanting to continue this conversation, Sunny only wished them luck. Tina calmly asked who they were, to which she received the answer that they were former colleagues. She noted that they were professional players, and then she asked if they would come back to cause him trouble. But that would be too inconvenient for them. If they made a mistake, a crowd of passers-by would form around them, which would cause them more problems than him. This reassured the girl. Why did she ask if he was okay? The guy took a few seconds to answer, exhaling tobacco smoke. Why did he smile and say that it was a small performance, nothing more? Compared to the last one, these are generally trifles. Then the guy asked if she really didn't recognize him because it really embarrassed him, and she laughed, saying that she had just started playing. She also added that she had reached level 20. Sunny looked at her monitor, surprised at how fast she was. The guy sat down next to her and said that after completing the class change quest, she should come to the ice forest. He doesn't want to waste time. He needs her to learn a couple of techniques and strategies, the girl agreed. After some time, Lord Grim and Soft Mist emerged from the dungeon, having completed the icy forest in 35 minutes and 48 seconds. The guy said that for a first playthrough she did well, and for now he wants her to get used to this dungeon. She understood everything about the beginning of the battle, the change of provocation, the grouping of mobs, their characteristics, as well as the features of the boss. After that, he suggested that she try to go through it alone, and he needed to step away and make a call. She clarified that this was a solo dungeon, but he was confident that she could handle it. Tina said that she would complete it. Then Sunny went to the landline phone, dialing a number he hadn't called in a long time, but knew by heart. After a long ring, a girl picked up the phone, and the guy immediately realized that she hadn't gotten out of bed yet. Recognizing this voice, Marie jumped up and asked where he was, and he replied that if she crawled to the window, she might see him. She immediately began to look at the road, answering that she could not see. He clarified that she needed to look across the road, diagonally. There is a place called the Happy Internet Cafe. She knew about it. Asked him if he played there all night long. He replied that he worked there. Marie said that the place suited him well, then asked where he lived. Sunny replied that in this same cafe he is provided with food and housing, and its owner is a big fan of hers. He asked her to give him her autograph sometime, and if he gave it to her, he would definitely get a promotion, and then asked if she was very busy. Marie was surprised because he should know what her schedule looked like, but she replied that she would come see him now. The guy clarified that if she came in, she would attract a crowd because she was a celebrity, and he had a personal request for her. He wanted her to help him break the record on the 10th server. The girl was again surprised that he was playing on a new server. The guy stunned her even more, specifying that he had transferred the Dark Lord there. Marie was silent for a few seconds. Then she replied that if compared to leveling up a character, the umbrella of 1,000 probabilities is much more problematic. But Sunny said that he had a whole year, that was more than enough. She became interested in what would happen after a year. Smiling, the guy replied that he would return as he promised. This answer made the girl very happy, and she also smiled. Having dressed, she tried to slip past her colleagues to the exit unnoticed, hiding her face along the way. At the same time, she learned details about how he upgraded his character and weapons, saying that it might not take a whole year. After leaving the building, Marie quickly walked to the nearest store to purchase one Glory account card. Meanwhile, Sunny said that the problem will appear when he gets to level 50, because he doesn't yet know how to get to 70. Anyway, he asked her to hurry up and reach level 25, then continue leveling up so that he could always rely on her. The girl understood everything. They had to spend a lot of time on leveling up, and in addition to that, break the server record. He decided to end the phone conversation and said that she would find out the details later, while he went out for a smoke. When Sunny walked outside with a cigarette in his mouth, he froze, seeing in front of him someone he didn't expect to see right now. On the other side of the road, he recognized Marie, who tried to hide her face with a scarf and dark glasses. The guy immediately revealed this disguise, waving his hand at his girlfriend, who responded in kind, happy that she was able to see him again. All she thought about was that wherever he was, she would always be there to help him, because she was his friend. After some time, Sunny returned to the internet cafe, wanting to find out how things were going with Tina's leveling up. He walked up to Tina, who was completely focused on the game and was clicking away at the keyboard and mouse. She asked him what happened, but he asked her not to get distracted because he was just watching her progress. She thought that there was no end to these goblins, then she needed to use the touch of the falling flower. Suddenly, she noticed that she didn't have enough mana. On top of that, she was injured, and the game was warning her of danger. Tina took too long to decide which potion she should drink now. Sunny noticed that she did not skimp on the potions. Without looking up from the screen, he explained that when trying to break a record, you can't wait for your potions to finish recharging. And besides potions, to increase efficiency, you need to calculate both the time of their use and your actions. Sitting down in a chair, he invited her to watch him for a while so that he could show her, but she immediately refused. For her, it was a matter of principle, so she confidently declared that she would end it herself, no matter what the cost. The surprised guy agreed with her, asking her to call him as soon as she finished. The girl gave an affirmative answer. Looking at Tina, Sunny smiled, mentally telling her that Glory was not as simple as she thought. While Sunny was busy with his own business, he received a message from Tina that she was done with the solo playthrough. He looked in surprise as the girl rolled back, apologizing because she had greatly underestimated this dungeon. Sitting down on a soft chair, she sadly lowered her head and asked if he could show her how to do it correctly. He agreed, asking to listen carefully to everything he would say. The girl was surprised to notice how the guy became serious, explained to her in detail how to achieve maximum efficiency, saying that theory often differs from practice because strategies are always changing. You also need to remember the amount of mana that each skill consumes. You need to remember all this so that no incidents arise. Tina was frustrated by the fact that she had to memorize the amount of mana for all the skills she constantly used. The girl thought that it was enough to simply press the buttons in time, trying to deal with the opponents as quickly as possible. She didn't expect to have to put in so much effort just to play the game, but she asked the guy to continue. She also needs to deal the most damage while using as little mana as possible, and be aware of all the hidden effects of skills. While Sunny was dumping a ton of information on the girl, she decided to make things easier for herself and record everything he said on her phone. Pointing the camera at the monitor, she continued recording the video, while listening to a lecture from the master of this game. It took much longer than she thought. Her hands were starting to get tired from holding the phone, but she held on. After a while, Sunny concluded that for now that was all. If they wanted to drink, then the record, they needed to push themselves to the absolute limit. They will require maximum concentration and a lot of effort, so she needs to practice hard for several days. He decided to complete the icy forest on Tina's account, doing it 20 minutes earlier than her, and using almost no potions. Tina asked if there were any other tips. She wanted to remember as much as possible, and also she was almost at the limit of entering the dungeon. He asked her to stop. Thank you that this night shift was hers, it was already morning, so he asked her to rest. Sunny said that she shouldn't rush too much. She also needed to take care of her physical health, and he would help her with leveling up. After all, if her pumping takes too long, they will have to postpone their entire plan for an indefinite period. Sunny imagined how people said about him that after retiring, he became a training partner for new recruits. If the rest of the guys in the professional circle found out about this, they would cry with laughter, so you need to stay in the shadows. Tina said that she would go to bed, advising the guy to also get some rest, but he decided that he had another important task to deal with. After logging into his account, he met with Steamed Bun, whom he had recently added as a friend, to ask for help. The bully was only too glad to see him, loudly announcing later that he had arrived and was ready to carry out his instructions. Sunny noted that he was waking up pretty early, to which the boy replied that he was telling him to stop leveling up. After that, the guy started to bombard him with a ton of information about guilds, the arena, and that he had learned to use abilities. Seeing a goblin running nearby, Bun decided to demonstrate to the Lord what he had learned. After that, he began to use sand throws, knee strikes, and chokes, thereby mocking the poor goblin. Using all his skills, he was able to win, after which he stood in a victory stance, hoping for the Lord's praise. He then stated that thanks to these skills, he dominated his opponents, playing like a god in the arena. Sunny replied that it was not bad, thinking that he really was a fast learner, then asked why he liked this class so much. He replied that when you started playing, you realized that the skills were going down, knee strikes and other things, the same as in street fights. Then the thought occurred to him that this was about him, because he was very good at such things, even though he had never used sand throwing in his life. After that, Sunny asked how many arena points he had. He replied that he had defeated 98 opponents, so he had 98 points. The Lord asked not to spend them, having saved 250, advised to buy a purple weapon of the 25th level, the Fighter's Claw. Bun happily shouted that his next goal was 250 arena points. Taking off his headphones, Sunny asked what was going on in his head. Suddenly, he noticed a new friend request. Learning the name of Cleansing Mist, the guy noted that she was quite fast. After chatting with Marie for a bit, Sunny concluded that the Battle Mage, Bully, and Launcher were all assembled as he had planned. After a while, the customers asked the manager to give them a pack of cigarettes, some noodles, and also a sausage with chicken legs. Running from place to place, Tina fulfilled the requests of the clients, who asked to bring them a bottle of green tea later, preferably cold. Sunny told her that she was working hard, but her shift would be over soon, and she replied that she would start practicing in a few minutes. Putting on the headphones, the guy noticed that Tina had already managed to change slightly, which from the outside looked quite good. Cold Knight wrote to Sunny that he was able to obtain information about the players from the Magnificent Dynasty, that the magic swordsman was Lee, with whom he had recently gotten into a squabble, but had emerged victorious. The sniper and the striker were the two players he pointed out the mistakes to, and they took it for granted. Knight also said that he was leveling up too slowly, to which the Lord replied that it didn't matter. His assistants were lower level than him. He replied that the Cleansing Mist only had 16, which was the smallest of all those who were to participate. The guild leaders shouted that they would have to wait a very long time to try to break this record. They couldn't wait that long. Tina, who was passing by, said that she would need about 10 minutes and then she would join him. 2 days later, players who were supposed to set a new record began to gather in front of the entrance to the Dungeon of the Ice Forest. Knight said that he brought the player that the Lord asked for. He is level 23. He is an elementalist with good skills. The guy stepped forward and greeted everyone, that his name was crowd favorite. He also hoped that they would get along quickly. But Knight did not understand what his intentions were, deciding that he came here simply to observe the Dark Lord. After all, the account of the crowd favorite was not the main one. Behind this character hid the larva of a much more famous person. After all, his main account was Wandering Peak, who was the leader of the Tyrant's Ambition Guild, and was currently here undercover. The entire group immediately turned around when they heard a rather noisy guy calling out to Lord Grimm, getting his attention. It was Bun, who managed to score 250 points and acquire a purple weapon, the Fighter's Claw, which Sunny recommended to him. Cold Knight immediately recognized the new hooligan, remembering when they had fought in a huge crowd for the bloody shooter. However, Bun did not pay any attention to his words. Looking at Tina, he said that there was a beauty among them, after which he greeted her. The girl smiled and Sunny asked what she was laughing about. She remarked that the guy was funny, then asked how to use voice chat. The Lord decided to introduce her personally, clarifying that she was a new combat mage, while Tina cleared her throat, preparing to speak to the team. She smiled and said that she had not been playing Glory for long, so she asked the team to take care of her as a newcomer. Smiling, Bun stated that she had a very beautiful voice, then asked what her zodiac sign was. Lord asked him to control himself. Knight stood in shock when he heard that she had been playing for a while. He brought their leader here, and he decided to bring a couple of newcomers. The disgruntled guy told Lord that they were missing one more person. Sunny replied that she had a day job, so she was a little inconvenienced.